You know what, folks? We are live now, and I've been sitting here broadcasting for the past 25 minutes to nobody because the system did not kick in. We are in something of a makeshift studio here tonight, and everything is still in a state of disarray. Hang on a second here. I'm sorry. I thought that we were on the air and we were not. The internet was connected, not connected. I don't know what the heck. Anyway, as you can see, the background is different here a little bit tonight. Everything was has been ripped apart in the studio. And I thought we were on the air and we're not. And thank you, Gina, for sending me a message to tell me that we weren't on. So I've reconnected to all the platforms and we are live. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to start all over again. How about that? So that everybody can get all the information. We have a lot of stuff to share with you. We're going to talk about America on the edge, the imminent arrest of Donald Trump, or possibly we may see him give himself up tomorrow to authorities. We are going to talk about President Xi Jinping of China visiting Russia. And we have Derek Smith, author of How the Prime Minister rather Stole Freedom, joining us later on the program. Derek is running for mayor in the city of Calgary, and he's going to explain his war on woke when he joins us later on in the program. So really looking forward to having Derek join us again. He's been on the show a few times, and he's a very prominent voice in the freedom fighting community across Canada, focusing now on a run at the mayor's chair in the city of Calgary. Can't wait to talk to him. So don't go away. I'll be right back, and we'll crank this thing up.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, Maverick News. Defending free speech, free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
And I'm back. And welcome, Maverick family. Thank you for your patience and your understanding. Everything is still just in a state of disarray here in the studio. So just doing my best to keep it together and still bring you some program content tonight. So let's kick it off again, shall we? For those of you who were not connected over the last 20 minutes or so, but we are firing on all cylinders now. So they are setting up barricades in New York City, in Manhattan, around the courthouse there, in preparation for any protests that might erupt as a result of the arrest of Donald Trump as early as tomorrow. We don't know for sure what's exactly going to happen. There are reports of all kinds coming in saying that he'll be arrested, he might give himself up. The information we're getting is that he is likely to just turn himself in rather than be arrested. And then they're talking about, would he get bail? Wouldn't he get bail? What would happen? Would he actually end up in jail? If this goes down, you're going to see, I think, a pretty severe reaction. This is history in the making. as I've said before, unprecedented. And it will further polarize the country. There are some people who think this is sort of like a double or triple or quadruple Democratic mind screw. I've heard some people, some analysts, some political pundits over the last 24 hours saying that the Democrats are actually choreographing this because they actually want Trump to run. That this is not actually an attempt to prevent him from running. They're trying to cement his support, fortify it within the Republican base, because they think Biden can beat Trump in the next election. They don't think he can win. So they want him to run. So they think that by arresting him, it will get people so angry that the people who maybe would switch over to someone like DeSantis will get behind Trump and propel him to victory so that he can then be defeated by the general population in the actual election. I don't know if they're that smart or if they are that devious. Yeah, they're that devious. I don't know if they're that smart to actually pull this off. I suppose it's possible. It does feel choreographed in many ways, though, doesn't it? I mean, it's like a replay in so many respects to what we saw in the previous elections, where they're kind of dragging this one out again, from over 7 years ago. This hush money payment, $130,000 to Stormy Daniels. Well, tonight, as I say, they are getting these barricades set up. We have a little bit of video of that. This is what it looks like. There they are, taking barricades off the back of a truck. Hang on, I think we have a different angle on this too. Yes, we do. Here we go. Let's take another look at this. So there they are, taking the barricades right off the back of that truck, and all to prepare for any kind of protest that might erupt because of the pending, imminent arrest and possible incarceration of former President Donald Trump. So Stormy Daniels, she is she's chiming in on this tonight too. So in this tweet, this tweet that she posts, she says, let me just bring this up. This is like a reality TV show. He probably watches my movies, she says, on repeat, which may be why he has so many typos. In brackets, slippery fingers from Lube and KFC. Read one tweet from Daniels on Sunday. Daniels' tweet was in response to a tweet from one of her detractors asking her why she was, quote, so obsessed with Trump. To which she responded, I only respond when he posts about me or talks about me on TV. They gave her an award. Yeah, they did. In New York, they gave her an award, the Democrats. Porn star. Almost makes you wonder what's in it for her. I think she's made a lot of money off this. Wow. And Governor Ron DeSantis in Florida he has been silent on all of this up until now. He has now offered up some commentary on it, saying that he's not involved in it, says he won't be involved in it. He has no interest in getting involved in this. He doesn't want to get in the middle of a manufactured circus involving a DA in New York, who he says is funded by and probably controlled by George Soros. We have a clip of DeSantis tonight. And I really do like DeSantis, and very strategic with his words here this evening.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Megan from the Florida Standard. We wanted to know what your thoughts are on the rumored Trump indictment, and if you have any role in it. If charges are brought on him, will you have any role in extradition to New York?
So I've seen rumors swirl. I have not seen any facts yet, and so I don't know what's going to happen. But I do know this: the Manhattan District Attorney is a Soros-funded prosecutor, and so he, like other Soros-funded prosecutors, they weaponize their office to impose a political agenda on society at the expense of the rule of law and public safety. He has downgraded over 50% of the felonies to misdemeanors. He says he doesn't want to even have jail time for the vast majority of crimes. And what we've seen in Manhattan is we've seen the crime rate go up, and we've seen citizens become less safe. And so you're talking about this situation with, and look, I don't know what goes into paying hush money to a porn star to secure silence over some type of alleged affair. I can't speak to that. But what I can speak to is that if you have a prosecutor who is ignoring crimes happening every single day in his jurisdiction, and he chooses to go back many, many years ago to try to use something about porn star hush money payments, that's an example of pursuing a political agenda and weaponizing the office. And I think that that's fundamentally wrong. I also think it's important to point out when you're talking about these Soros-funded prosecutors, yes, they may do a high-profile politicized prosecution, and that's bad, but the real victims are ordinary New Yorkers, ordinary Americans in all these different jurisdictions, that they get victimized every day because of the reckless political agenda that these Soros DAs bring to their job. They ignore crime and they empower criminals, and that hurts people. It hurts a lot of people every single day. These Soros district attorneys are a menace to society, and I'm just glad that I'm the only governor in the country that's actually removed one from office during my tenure. And in terms of we are not involved in this, won't be involved in this. I have no interest in getting involved in some type of manufactured circus by some Soros DA, okay? He's trying to do a political spectacle. He's trying to virtue signal for his base. I've got real issues I got to deal with here in the state of Florida. We're obviously shutting down CBDC, which is important. We've got so many things pending in front of the legislature. I've got to spend my time on issues that actually matter to people. I can't spend my time worrying about things of that nature. So we're not going to be involved in it in any way. I'm fighting for Floridians, and I'm fighting back against Biden. That's what I do every single day. Yep.
Governor, another question in terms of that. Are you aware if there has been any communication between Florida law enforcement and New York authorities if they do indict and President Trump does not go to New York for arraignment? Discussions about how he may be arraigned here in Florida since he resides here. Are you aware of any?
I'm not aware of anything.
And DeSantis has some very good points there. Maybe his most important point is that it's everyday average Americans who suffer the most in a situation like this, because if you look at citizens in New York, they're police officers, hundreds and hundreds of them are taken out of service to focus on securing a perimeter around a courthouse while this political circus unfolds. Everyday Americans are distracted by this circus. All of the energy of the media, of the, so much of the country is so focused on this that the business of governing takes a back seat. All this happening while a new multipolar geopolitical reality is unfolding around the world. The banking system is collapsing. The economy has been destroyed. People's jobs are evaporating. The social fabric of the country is being ripped apart. Social tensions are flaring. Politically, the country is polarized. And this just inflames everything, throws fuel on the fire, and further polarizes people. Gets people upset. This is poking MAGA in the eye. That's what it's doing. This is intentionally provocative. The Democrats are already getting ready to attack Trump and possibly even charge him if there is any kind of aggressive protesting. They'll accuse him of inciting again. And yet, really, if you look at it, who's inciting whom? They want a reaction. Is it a double, triple, quadruple mind screw? A psychological warfare tactic? All designed to mess with people's minds and get them to support Trump so that he runs again so he can lose? I don't know. I don't know if I'd take it quite that far, but it's pretty clear that what they're doing is designed to provoke. And all this happening while President Xi Jinping of China visits Russia today. And, they're focused on trade. They are focused, the Chinese are focused on their economy, building. And the same can be said, I think, of Russia, forging new alliances, new partnerships, new business relationships. Well, the United States is focused on war. They don't want peace, and they're making that very, very clear. We've seen that with statements from John Kirby just within the last day. Washington is arguing that any ceasefire mediated by China in Ukraine, for instance, is unacceptable and will be opposed by the United States. And we've seen other attempts to strike some sort of peace in Ukraine, circumvented by NATO and the West. Here's a clip of John Kirby saying just that.
Monday through Wednesday of President Xi to Moscow, the state visit, if you will. But what we have said before, and we'll say it again today, that if coming out of this meeting, there's some sort of call for a ceasefire, well, that's just going to be unacceptable, because all that's going to do, Mike, is ratify Russia's conquest to date. All that's going to do is give Mr. Putin more time to refit, retrain, reman, and try to plan for renewed offensives at a time of his choosing. We hope, and we've said this before, that President Xi will call and talk to President Zelensky, because we believe the Chinese need to get the Ukrainian perspective. Monday through Wednesday of President Xi.
That's John Kirby.
Before.
And again, as far as they're concerned, peace is victory for Russia. No, peace would be victory for the people, because you have hundreds of thousands of people who've been killed over there now as a result of this conflict, and it's the people who are suffering. But NATO and the U.S. appear they still appear willing to fight to the very last Ukrainian. And we're also seeing statements now from Poland and their leadership saying that if Ukraine cannot successfully defend its democracy, that Poland would have to enter the war. That means sending in their soldiers. You see where this is going? Poland, how long before they have actual U.S. troops and Canadian troops on the ground in Ukraine? We need to, I think, take very close note of all of this. I don't know if getting Donald Trump elected again would actually be good for the country, because it would guarantee at least 4 more years of all of this division, the constant fighting, the muckraking, constant. But you have to wonder, would it be any different with anyone else? I'm not so sure that it would be any different. It seemed to be different back in 2016. Things really did seem to shift, but I'm not sure if it was because it was specifically Trump or if it was just at that moment that the political game changed at that time. You know, if you had DeSantis as the candidate running against Biden or anybody else in the next election, would the tone change? Would the attacks be any different? I'm not sure that they would be. The reason I say that is I think back to even when Ronald Reagan was president. And while today even Democrats will speak of Reagan with some degree of respect, and he has become something of an icon for conservatives. I remember when Reagan was president, and I remember the harsh, inflammatory attacks that were leveled against him through the mainstream media at that time. Do you remember when they used to call him Ronnie Reagan? I certainly do. Ronnie Reagan. Here, let me show you. And this was back when, you know, he was talking about the Star Wars defense plan, the umbrella against nuclear attack. People at the time were saying that that wouldn't be possible technologically, that it was all science fiction, science fantasy, really, that would never become reality. Well, we do have technology sort of like that now, don't we? But yeah, then they started to call him Ronnie Reagan. And they portrayed him as being kind of sleepy too. And then in his, you know, the latter years of his presidency, he was in cognitive decline as well. There was a lot of speculation that he was suffering from Alzheimer's, making people wonder if he was really the one in charge or if he was just a puppet with other people pulling the strings behind the scenes. There was a lot of evidence of that at the time. He certainly was not as sharp as he was. And then he stopped making as many public appearances, but the media attacks were extremely harsh. And then along comes George Bush. Both Bushes, both of them attacked heavily in the media. They didn't like him. Why would they? He wasn't their guy. Back then, they were still very much on the left, the general media, the mainstream media, and they portrayed both Bushes as kind of stupid. especially Bush Jr. And even John McCain, a rhino, really, they attacked him too. Oh, before he was, actually a contender, they treated him with kid gloves, but once he was in the running, no, it was all bets were off, and even attacked him. So I don't know if anything would be any better, even if we had someone else fill the role of candidate for the next presidential election instead of Trump. Would they come after DeSantis with as much vigor? I think they would. You've seen it even, especially during the pandemic. DeSantis, I mean, they portrayed Florida as being the super spreader state, when in reality, the numbers, the statistics were as good or better as any other state out there. It wasn't worse in Florida. But they so wanted to demonize him while propping up Cuomo in New York as the savior. They even gave that guy an Emmy. While he took sick people infected with the virus, and stuffed them into nursing homes where they could spread the virus among the most vulnerable. Then they give the guy an award. The whole world was upside down then. It's upside down now. And I just don't know if it's going to get any better. It certainly seems to be deteriorating. It seems to be a lot worse. And that is why tonight there are some people who think America is on the edge of a civil war because of what they appear ready to do to Donald Trump. In my estimation, beyond irresponsible, beyond inflammatory, absolutely intentionally provocative. You want to incite a civil war? Do what you're doing. And this is all from the Democrat side, because this is all petty. It doesn't even have any legal merit in my estimation. So what they're doing is going to set the country on fire potentially. Why? It's selfish. All this for political gain. Regardless of whether you think it's like a straight-on attack to not get him to run or a double, triple, quadruple psychological psyop mind screw to get him to run so that he can lose, whatever. It's clearly a political tool that's being used. They're on a political witch hunt. And it's not good for America. It's cheapening the country. It's cheapening the presidency. It's cheapening democracy. And it is potential. This has the potential to rip the country apart. It really, truly does. It's that serious. They're being cavalier with this. Taking democracy, the rule of law, the legal system, the entire country for granted. And for that, they should be honestly ashamed of themselves. I think it is disgusting. They need to stop. Start conducting themselves with some integrity and some damn dignity. That's what's needed in what is supposed to be a country that sets an example, a democratic example for the rest of the world. What the hell happened? I don't know. We're in trouble.
The New World Order. Government overreach. The Great Reset. Mainstream media lies. Now more than ever, independent voices are needed. Donate now at freedomreporters.com. That's freedomreporters.com. Maverick News. The antivirus program for your mind.
Maverick News. Fighting for freedom.
Okay, I'm back. And because Derek Smith is going to join us during the program tonight well, he'll be here in about an hour. What we're going to do is we're going to go to the phones because we haven't done that for quite a while. So we'll go to the phones and we're going to do that just in the next few minutes here. So let me get that set up. We'll take another quick break while I configure the phone system, and then you guys can weigh in on the conversation here tonight and our coverage of the top news of the day and our feature interview. Progression toward the feature interview will continue when we come back.
Fighting the Great Reset. By leading the Great Resistance. Maverick News. The antivirus programs for your mind.
Okay, phone lines are set up. Here's the number to
join the conversation. Call 1-833-975-3733. That's 1-833-975. Free. Speak up. Speak out. Make your voice heard. Maverick News. Fighting for freedom by defending your right to free speech. Be a Maverick. Join us.
Okay, I'm back. And you're back. We're back together. And you can support the channel by liking, sharing, and subscribing. Please make sure if you do subscribe on YouTube that you hit the notification bell. And that way you won't miss any of the videos. And we're doing pretty well over on Rumble. Things are humming along over there. We keep picking up more and more viewers every single broadcast. And we're bringing that online and getting close to where we are with some of our YouTube numbers on some of the channels on YouTube. So that's awesome. And we're on Facebook too. So please consider sharing all of the stuff over there and friending us. I'll certainly accept you. And yeah, you can also support us by donating at maverickdonations.com or at freedomreporters.com. Those are the two easiest ways, or the best ways, I think, to support the channel and the programming and the journalism that we provide here. And we greatly appreciate the support that we have had. The phone lines, for instance, cost money constantly. So we pay by the minute when we're running the phone lines, just to give you guys a voice. I know that a lot of you have been asking for T-shirts as well. And I've been reluctant to do any kind of merchandise or advertising or anything, but we are getting some T-shirts made up, and they are going to look something like that, the first ones. So we'll have those available probably within the next week. And we have some other shirts that will be embroidered. Some pretty nice stuff. So a little bit of merch. And we'll talk about pricing when we get the first batch of those things in. I'm not sure where that's going to end up, but that is happening. I'm caving to the pressure of people asking. So that is on the way. And we are ready to go to the phones. So let's see if we have any callers lined up. And we do have somebody in the queue right now. Hello, how are you tonight?
You got
sir?
the mouth of salt a man without a plan to master all disasters, Rick. Let's talk about democracy tonight.
Okay.
Okay, when you have in Canada, I'm not going to say the U.S. because you'll get banned, my friend. When we have election interference in Canada, that's not democracy, my friend. Not even close. Okay, so everybody's trying to hold on tight to what we have over here. Okay, and at the end of the day, it's going to be a fight for our democracy. And as for Donald Trump, as for Ron DeSantis, I like him. But when Ron DeSantis says that what was the word that he used? There's some fabrication going on
Oh,
to
yeah.
get Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you don't want to get involved, but I'll tell you what, if you're a politician and you know there's fabrication going on, you better get your fucking ass involved. Plain and simple. Okay, that's not democracy. So politicians better be very careful on how they approach what's going to happen here to Donald Trump. Because if there's fabrication, he just said there was fabrication, and you're not doing nothing about it, man, oh man, you got to watch what you say nowadays. You'll wind up like Julian Assange. Okay,
Yeah.
You want to report, and as soon as you go too deep into the reporting, they'll lock you up. Throw away the key. That's not democracy, my friend. Not even close.
Yeah.
Now, there's another story you're missing out on.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Reiner, Leafs ex-goalie, playing for I think San Jose Sharks.
Yeah.
He didn't want to wear the rainbow on his jersey in a game.
Yes.
Okay, now I don't give a shit what another man does with another man. That's your business. Okay, I don't have to support it, and you don't have to make me support it. Plain and simple. Now the woke have gone too far. Okay, I was all for 10 years ago, 15 years ago, that the gay movement. You got your gay movement. You got your Gay Pride Day. Now it's a month. Okay, go do what you want to do. That's freedom in my eyes. You want to be with another man, that's up to you. Okay, I'm not going to knock you for that. But when you're trying to force the general population to fucking wear your colors and everything else, I'm not buying it. The woke society, man, oh man, oh man, I'll tell you. You know, they're identifying chicks with dicks. Plain and simple. You're not a chick if you got a dick. Okay? I'm not a fucking rhino if I don't have horns. Okay, people are identifying with anything that they want to identify with, and the woke society, oh no, you have to abide by what they just said. Like you see white people identifying as there's one guy identifying as a South Korean. I identify as South Korean. Well, you're not South Korean. You're a Caucasian. Okay? And you see white people identifying as black people. Man, the world's fucking turned upside down. Okay? There's going to be a purge in the end, unfortunately. Okay? And I can't actually wait for that day. I'm going to sit back and eat my popcorn and watch the purge going on. And it has nothing to do with being racist or any of that shit. You don't force nothing on me. We got RuPaul coming to Caesars Windsor in June. Now, my aunt called me because I get free tickets to all the shows at Caesars and asked me about RuPaul tickets. I said, no. She said, "Are you going to the RuPaul show?" I saw, yeah. I'm taking my kid, my 17-year-old little Leo. He's coming with me. Really? I said, I don't fucking think so. You can take the tickets. You want the tickets, but I'm not standing in line for 2 seconds for a RuPaul show. I don't support it. Okay, it's all ages show. I won't be there. And that's at Caesars Windsor in June or July, somewhere around there.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not buying it. I'm not part of the woke. Okay, and you're not going to force that lifestyle or any of that shit on me. Okay, I'm going to teach my son the family value. If I could, Rick, and if I had the money, I'd go back to 1850. I'd be so far up on the fucking Canadian Shield near the Hudson Bay. Unplugging myself from society. That's how bad it is. Just to go back to 1850. No cell phones, no computers, no telephones. Got my chickens, got whatever, right? Living off the land. But you know what? They won't let you do that because they can't tax you. You just can't go squat up on crown land somewhere and do what you want to do. You got to pay tax. They got to know where you are at all times, right? So I'm just sick and tired of it, Rick. And like I said, man, oh man, Donald Trump, this might be the boiling point of the tea kettle, my friend.
Yeah, I
'Cause
can't
after all, he
believe
put out
it's deteriorated to
you
this
know he's-
point. I can't believe that they're actually thinking of arresting him, especially on something as flimsy as this.
Well, the thing is, you could arrest a guy like the Mouth of the South. I got 10,000 something followers on Facebook. Who am I? I'm nobody. When you have 80 million motherfucking followers in the United States and elsewhere, a lot more. Houston, you're going to have a problem tomorrow.
Yeah.
This is not going to end well, especially United States. Okay, we know everybody's packing over there. I don't know, man. I pray for the best.
Me too.
What do you think of that, Rick?
Well, I'm like you. I'm praying for the best because America really is on the edge, and this just might be the thing that pushes the country over the edge. I think it's that serious.
And you were right
really
about.
is.
Yeah, I think you were onto something when you said smoke and mirrors too, right? Let's use locking up Trump. If something else is going to happen, they don't want us to look that way. So they got some shitty bills being passed down in the in Congress tomorrow that they don't want us to be looking at because everybody's going to be focused on Donald Trump's arrest.
Yeah, well, they don't want you
Right?
looking at the economy right now either. The whole banking system is collapsing, and they just that is serious business too. You know, like they don't want people focused on that stuff. That's way too serious. Watch the soap opera over here. Go fight
I've
amongst.
never seen anything like it.
Yeah, fight amongst yourselves while the country burns. Right. While we destroy the economy, you guys go to get out in the streets and slit each other's throats.
Right. Because who's going to care about the economy? They're going to be focused on, they locked up Trump. And guess what? There's some states that are very, 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 very Republican that are going to start shit. Okay. And they're going to focus on that. They're going to go, look, we told you. Okay. Forget about the economy. Forget about Ukraine. Forget about possible Poland going to war with Russia. What a joke. Poland's going to look like dumbass in a New York second. They want to play that game.
Yep.
Right. So with that being said, Rick, thanks a lot. You're doing a great job. I in and out all weekend with you. You know, I got like you, I got the wife hounding me at a drippy faucet. Thank God it was a Moen with a lifetime replacement cartridge. I had to get on it, brother.
Thank you, Leo. It's always a pleasure, my friend.
Thanks, Rick.
All right. Have a good night. Good luck with those house repairs. Okay. Who do we have on the line next? Go ahead.
Hey, what's up, Rick?
Well,
Can you
tell
hear me?
I can hear you. What do you want to talk
Good.
about?
Well, I wanted to say congrats for your show, man. I like what you do. Keep it up. Keep the smile. Don't get under your skin those little trolls, because, well, they're just troll, man. Don't get them under your skin, right?
Right.
And you know what? If you need some mods, Pissed Off Dragon here is happy to help. So you got all that for yourself, my friend. That's pretty much what I wanted to say.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Any other issues you want to focus on tonight? Anything else?
Yeah, well, I have probably a question, more so like a logistical question.
Yeah.
I want to probably start something about investigating journalism. So if you got some advice to give to a rookie, well, I'm all ears.
Advice on how to become an investigative journalist?
Yeah, on the ground, actually. I want to go with my phones and stuff, and just record and do some investigating, prepare my my speech and stuff, and because there's a lot to look at. Because I live in Montreal, and there's a lot to look at in Montreal, and there's no people doing that, right? There's no one on the ground, so I think there's an opening here.
Well, that's interesting.
What do you think?
I think that's great. I think that it's an exciting time for journalism because anybody can do it now. The technology is there to do like live reports. I mean, when I got into it, we had to have microwave or satellite trucks in the field in order to go live. It was a really big deal. And it was technically complicated.
Yeah, you need like a team of 5 people with the cameras and the sound check and stuff.
Yeah, and it was cumbersome, right? And it was a big deal to go live on TV. Now,
but I mean, today I can go on with my phone,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I could sit here and tell you stories about some of the first times that I used cell phone technology to go live, and actually we did like look lives, but I won't bore you with it because today it sounds kind of silly what we were doing back then. But I could see it all coming, and the medium is the message. It changes the way news is covered. So it's an exciting time. So yeah, absolutely. If you're into it and you're excited by that, I think that's great. Because
I was looking into the police department, Chinese police department in Montreal, and I mean, I look into it, and on the net, there's nothing much that you can find. I mean, there's no address, there's no Google map that will pinpoint you the places. So I gotta go like basically on the street, and do it like the old school's way.
Yeah, just a few maybe tips that might help you. First, educate yourself on some of the laws surrounding libel, slander, so that you don't get yourself into trouble. Educate yourself on the laws surrounding charges against youth, because that can easily get you into trouble. Those are the 3 things that I would at least get basic knowledge of before you start broadcasting anything. You're going to see lawsuits against just regular citizen journalists over the coming years, I think, because people get involved in trying to practice journalism without understanding any of that stuff, and they leave themselves open to lawsuits because they make big mistakes.
Right.
The other thing is,
and also the C11 bills coming through with that.
Yeah.
It might like make more trouble. You know what I mean?
Yes. So you need to just be aware so that you can protect yourself by not making mistakes, right? And the other, really the basic thing is, I just like to, for me, set the standard of whatever I'm doing day in, day out. I just try to serve the public interest. That's the standard for me. People maybe don't understand why I do what I do sometimes, or why did he do that story, or why did he, they don't understand because there are other things going on behind the scenes. But everything I do, I approach from, is this in the best interests of the public? And that's the way I approach pretty much everything. It's not about me. It's not about an individual. It's not about trying to further someone's political career. Everything is about the public for me. And that has always served me well.
Opening people's eyes, basically.
Yeah. Just whatever's good for the people, right? If you stay in that vein,
thank you, sir.
If you stay in that vein, then I think you're going to end up on the right side of history.
Well, thanks. I appreciate a lot.
Thank you. And yeah, call back. And, if you start doing some of this stuff, let me know, and we'll try to cross promote with you and get people over to your channel or whatever you're doing and help promote you up there in Montreal.
All right. Well, thanks, sir.
Thank you.
Really appreciate
the call.
Looking forward for another call, man.
All right. Excellent. Thank you.
Have a good day.
You too. See ya. And here is, I think it's Rob. Hello, Rob. How are you tonight?
Well, how's it going, Mr. Media?
It's going well, sir. You want to talk about the banking crisis tonight?
Oh, you're trying to bait me in?
No, I just see something in the on the text
I
here.
was talking about it was a climate, basically.
Oh, okay. Sorry. No, that was from the previous call. I see the last time you called, you wanted to talk about the bank things. You want to talk about the climate, what, the political climate or the climate?
They both, we don't know what it's going to do,
Yeah.
It's like the weather. I caught that last conversation from the gentleman from Montreal, and his wife, and it's kind of like you and me both know this. You go out in public and start pointing your camera around, people's going to ask questions whether you like that or not.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I've always stuck to a certain rule and aspect. Is the do not approach rule is number one. It's a lot of these guys that do these public audits. They go audit the government institutions and the police and all of that. And there's a lot to learn from that, But now, back on this thing about Mr. Trump, I was watching some stuff and reading some information that was in regards to one of his attorneys, a past attorneys in a corporation, all of what went on. And it's coming down to an issue, from what I understand, would be a client attorney privilege thing. One is if I'm an attorney and you come and sit down and you tell me, hey, I've been charged with this, such and such, this, and I need some defense on this. But that's perfectly legal and it falls inside the perimeters of a confidentiality between an attorney and their client. But if somebody comes in and seeks advice on something that they could possibly be arrested for, then that's a fine line between attorney privilege rights between clients, which means that it's a felony in federal law to advise an attorney of a law that's been broke or is going to be broken, and somehow or another they're putting it back to a corporation that was operated by the Trump corporations somehow. That was to sell the house for like $120,000. Stormy Daniels, her attorney got the money and settled whatever it was settled with her, but who's to say? I just think it's a crooked thing either way. I think that a sexual affair has nothing to do with a person doing their job, because in New Orleans, Louisiana, LaToya Cantrell, the mayor of New Orleans, was also found guilty of having extramarital affairs recently, but she's still on the job. So I don't know where they're going to try to put that. I don't know. I know there's a lot of people inside this country that are concerned with our public servants, our public paid elected position officials, putting us down a road that, and you're right, it's going to put a stain on our country, and it's going to probably drag Canada in there somehow, because we're attached at the hip. If people don't know that.
Yeah.
Yes. So, I mean, it's just going to come down to the point. I mean, in the past, the attorney general that was on the case had just kind of just kicked it out. And the new attorney general that came in, from what I understand, had jurisdiction over that. Something happened, blah, 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 but they're down to the fine line. And it's a lot, I'm going to say, shit stirring going on inside the country between the Democrats and the Republicans. But there's a point to be made. One is, if I give Donald Trump 80 million votes inside this country, and then I give Joe Biden another 85 million votes inside this country, the majority of the country didn't vote for either side. You know, and I heard I was one of those people, you know. The fact of the matter is we're letting all of this stuff is being rehashed. It's being reborn. We got a guy down in Florida who puts himself on a live broadcast. He's got less than 200 followers, and it's all about the hate against the anti-white people. He wants to, and it's all about the black, it's all about the white, it's all about the Mexicans, and it's not got anything to do with the people, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, we got thousands of people being slaughtered. You know, we're paying for that, by the way. So if people want to shake their politician's hand and go in there and say thank you for contributing to murder and killing all of these people. I watched a live interview with Vladimir Putin, and you know, it strikes me as a person who's driving. He's actually driving the vehicle. He's inside that country. He's going into the towns and he's meeting with the mayors and the governors, and they're showing him aerial photographies of what the war has done to certain parts of that country and what they have came back in there and rebuilt. But the fact it is he can actually drive an SUV into a town, get out, walk around, meet the people. But I don't see either of our leaderships, Canada or Joe Biden, making that sort of an attempt, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
It's about China and Russia and such countries. You know, it's almost as though we've got officials making a judgment call on, oh, these guys are just they're going to all gang together and they're going to be more financially more powerful than we are.
Just
leadership.
Just hate to interrupt you, but I do have this clip of the mayor of New York City just talking about Trump. So let me run this. It's just just a few seconds long, and then you can continue with your commentary. How about that?
It's up to DA Braggs, and we've heard a lot of reports, but the DA is going to make that determination, and we're doing what we always do. You know, we're monitoring comments on social media, and the NYPD is doing their normal role of making sure that there's no inappropriate actions in the city, and we're confident we're going to be able to do that.
So what do you think of that?
The thing about it is, Rick, is in a layman's terms, you know, a lot of times people want to confuse it behind certain levels of education. They want to throw words in there that average people just can't seem to understand because they didn't go to college.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't live a white Ivy League lifestyle. They need a down-to-earth answer. The fact of the matter is is if I got in my vehicle and went down this road and I'm going too fast and I get pulled over and I say, hey, I know I was going too fast, so how about I settle this with you right now? And the officer says, well, it's not something I'm supposed to do, but I'll go ahead and take your money. That would make him a criminal and it would make me a criminal. One is if Donald Trump paid somebody payment for a sexual encounter between two consenting adults. I don't know if that's necessarily against the law in Las Vegas, Nevada, but the fact of the matter is it's the stain that was being put forth before. This happened before he stepped into the president's office. And it's being assumed that it's some kind of a cover up, something illegal was going on. But the fact of the matter is the man's attorney did get arrested, to use corporation money as a form of a payoff. And a presidential candidacy for hush money is a felony inside the United States. Same as me getting pulled over. I would rather just take the ticket, go to court, say I'm guilty, and get that over with. But the fact of the matter is, Martha Stewart, she's one of my idols. I know I hate to say that. She got in trouble, but she did what she did. She cowboyed up, and she took her lick. She went to prison. She served her time. From what I hear, she was teaching home economics inside the prison. She done what she had to do. She took her lick. She came out of it. Donald Trump is no different than anybody like Martha Stewart or anybody else out here. If they're willing to take their lick and stand up and say, yeah, I did that, but there's no admittance, that they're going to take it to the mat and say, oh, I didn't. Okay, you didn't, So you got to kind of got to weigh it in and look at it. There is no such thing, supposedly, as a two-tiered justice. But evidently, if you're walking around with billions of dollars in your pocket and you're paying off, porn stars, that seems to be okay. So, I don't know what else to say there, Rick. I don't know.
Well,
I'm in it for, essentially, is everybody else that's got any sense can look at this little red-blue argument going on between these parties, and they can recognize immediately. It'll go all the way back to 1776. It'll go all the way back there. Because once you had the parties established inside this country, and they were determined to have their own sovereign states, they were granted that sovereign state. But nobody ever seems to reason the reasons behind why they had to do that. Why did they have to do that? It was to escape the tyranny of, who was it, King George? So now, instead of having one king to deal with, it seems that we have multiple kings, and reds and blues and Trudeaus and whoever. They're not acting the part as their duly elected office. I was impressed. There was once a time in our history when the Russian soldiers and the American soldiers stood in the same trenches and waved their flags together. I would like to know whatever happened to that,
Mm-hmm.
So,
we should probably move on. I'll just get you to wrap up with a final thought.
Well, I'll go back to people power. It's why should anybody get upset at something? There's nothing to be upset for. These are public officials. They work for us. We make everything possible for them. They're supposed to protect us. I don't see any protection going on here. I see a war machine.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Rick, I appreciate your time, as always.
Yes, I appreciate you, sir. Excellent call.
And, yeah. and just keep the faith. And I made a mistake on that 200 billion we were talking about the other day. That was just two, but it was all together. We're out over $600 billion. How's that feel? That feels tremendous. Well, anyways, thanks for the call. I'll talk to you soon. I'll keep an ear to the ground for you. And thanks for giving the opportunity.
All right. We'll chat more later. Take care. All right. Let's move on to our next call. Hello, Tony.
Hi, Rick. Tony.
How you doing tonight?
Good. Well, how are you? Some days, Rick, you think, I'm optimistic, and other days, it's just, it's hard to get out of bed thinking what's going on.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's hard to keep positive attitude when there's so many negative results. And
well, you know what?
this whole
Actually,
thing
with that, I have a video coming up, and I'm going to run it at the end of the show. And it speaks, it deals with exactly what you're talking about. And it's the best video I've seen in a long time. So, I'm just teasing it for you. So you're going to want to see that.
Well, regarding President Trump, they've tried to stick so many things to this man. And yet, I was listening today to a big time radio show host in the U.S., and I won't say who because you probably know who it is. And he was saying, Bill Clinton was doing that, in the White House with an intern or Monica Lewinsky and who knows who else. Yeah. And wasn't there a U.S. senator that was Fang, a Chinese spy? And then another, I forget her name now, in California, she had a Chinese spy as her chauffeur for 20 years. And you know what? Oh, well, hey, no biggie here. Show's over, folks. And here, Trump, they just see this big orange guy. And, Rick, I heard, it's either you love him or you hate him. And I've seen people just go off the deep end in their hate for him. And I said, what did he do to you? They can't say anything. They just hate him because they watch CNN, MSNBC, ABC, and all those other bought-off networks, like our CBC. Actually, most of our media bought off by Trudeau. Mm-hmm. And in speaking of which, the two great minds are meeting in Ottawa on Thursday. Meeting of the minds there.
Can't wait for that.
Wouldn't you like to be a fly on the... Wow. You remember that movie, Dumb and Dumber?
Yes.
Those guys are Rhodes Scholars compared to those two. But no, I was just going to say, Rick, another topic is, do you think our Canadian banks are as secure as we sort of puff our chests out? Are they as secure as we think they are?
No, because they're exposed internationally. No, I don't think so. Not at all.
No, like we seem to be, we're just looking out the window saying, oh, we're fine, everything's great. I saw something where they have like $3.5 trillion out in loans out there. Yeah. And the assets they have, and they valued the assets, don't come anywhere near that. And I'm going, oh boy, Yeah. But I'm sort of doing the circling around back to President Trump. Isn't he supposed to be guarded? Former presidents are guarded by Secret Service agents.
Yes.
So how they can't put him in lockup? They can actually say, no, this building has to be cleared of everybody. And, there could be a standoff between the Secret Service agents and the New York police.
Good luck with this, man.
And
this is a mess. The whole thing is a mess.
I think, if anything, they're making him a martyr.
Yeah.
And
that's what I mean. It could be a double.
I don't know.
It could be a quadruple mind screw, right? Where they look like they're attacking him when they're really trying to help him. But who knows?
Well, Rick, the previous caller, he sound like he's from Louisiana, or he was from the deep South U.S., right?
Yeah, I think Alabama.
Your previous,
I think he's from
Alabama.
I think so.
Well, I'm wondering, this is way out there, but do you think that President Trump is running interference for Ron DeSantis? This is all their supposed rivalry and back and forth bickering is just
No,
so
I don't think he's
the
running
Democrats are
interference
all.
for him. I mean, anytime you get into this portion of the electoral process where
Yeah.
they're competing against each other within the party in order to establish who will become the presidential nominee, they fight with each
Republican
other.
nominee, yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's confusing to people because once they pick their candidate, then they'll all be friends again. And then you could maybe see DeSantis and Trump become the best buddies again. And maybe DeSantis would be, Trump's VP, right? His running
That's
mate.
what I was going to say.
It could easily happen. And then the next thing you know, Trump is there and he's the best. DeSantis is the best guy ever. Everything is forgiven. Now he's my best friend. And that's the way it works.
Like you say, with the in-party fighting, but then once that's over, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. So, meaning the Democrats, are your enemy. But the other thing I was reading in the Epoch Times newspaper, Rick, well, what the hell is the Iranian Navy doing in the Panama Canal? They're going into Brazil, and they're talking about going into the Panama Canal. And the U.S. has said the rather tepid response by President Biden. That's being kind, actually. I mean, I would have an aircraft carrier escorting them right back to Iran. An aircraft carrier group, I should say.
It just shows how the U.S. position globally is weakening. They don't have the clout that they used to have. This war in Ukraine is exposing all of that in a major way, and this banking crisis is exposing it too. They've been using the U.S. dollar as a weapon for so long that now, with the banking system crumbling, they don't have that leverage. They tried to use that strategy against Russia and China, and it hasn't worked. Not this time.
Well, you know what I read about 6 months ago, Rick, was that a lot of Federal Reserves of other countries, you know what they were buying up by the ton? Gold.
Yes.
Gold. China, Russia, other countries, Poland, you name it. They were not buying it by the ounce, by the ton.
Yes.
So what's that tell you? They're going, oh, digital currency, greatest thing since the invention of sliced bread. Meanwhile, the top 1% or 5% are buying gold
because
in other countries.
Gold has always been the true representation of value. It's tangible, it's real, and in that way it's linear, not digital, and it represents true value. And that means you can't, it's like the natural aspect of the economy, right? It becomes undeniable at some point. You can't control the economy forever. You can distort things. You can put an airplane up in the air, but eventually it runs out of fuel and it has to come back down. That's artificial, right? And then there's just the law of nature. There's the law, the laws of economics that have just become undeniable. Supply and demand, and you can manipulate it for a little while, but after a while, that's why you need gold, and we should probably never should have come off the gold standard.
I was just going to say that, Rick. Do you think they'd ever go back to a gold standard? Because a lot of people, and silver's rising in price as well, and other precious metals. And the thing is that we got away from fundamentals. We got too lax. We got too, just too ridiculous, really.
I think we have to go back to the gold standard because and globally, really, because it restricts government. It protects the public.
Printing
it restricts
money.
Government from printing too much money. You can only print so much because at that point, because it's the gold that is actually the reserve currency. And there's only a finite amount of that, right?
Well, you remember the Weimar Republic in Germany in the 1920s.
Yep.
You had to bring a wheelbarrow of money to buy a loaf of bread and a quart of milk.
Yep.
And one guy told me a true story. He said the guy left the wheelbarrow with the money outside the store. When he went to go get the money, the money was still there, but the wheelbarrow was gone.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
You know, the wheelbarrow had more value than the money.
And people need to remember their history. It was the inflation, the devaluation of the currency that is one of the things that led to the Second World War, the rise of the Nazi Party.
Yeah. Well,
And
it was because of the reparations they had to be paying to the Allies, and they were just too vengeful.
Yeah.
And that's, like you said, set the table for World War II, and now we're on the brink of World War III.
Yeah.
You know, with the Iran and China and Russia doing joint maneuvers, we've literally pushed Russia into the arms of China.
Yes.
And that'll go down in history as one of the biggest blunders by the West ever conceived. Because, quite frankly, Rick, if we went to war right now, I don't think we'd win.
No, I don't think so either. I think we're in
World
trouble.
War III.
Yeah.
You know, did you hear the statistic that in the U.S., and I'm sure it's the same in Canada, this aged 17 to 24-year-olds, only 75% or 77% of them are unfit for military duty. That's 3 out of 4, a little more than 3 out of 4 are unfit for military duty. And I'm going, oh my God, you know, whereas in Russia and China and Ukraine, they're razors. Those guys are razors. And now they're battle-hardened veterans. Russia, China, I won't doubt China's probably going to be sending advisors into the Ukraine for the Russians. But, you know, that's my own speculation here. So take that what you will from it. But, you know, it's just, I just think, you know, the Colonel McGregor, I think you know who he is. He's a combat veteran of tank battle in Iraq in 1993. It was the largest tank battle the Americans had since World War II. And he was saying, we don't have a healthy fear of war anymore. It's been like 80 years since there was a world war, almost 80 years.
Yeah.
And we just don't have a healthy fear of war. And that's
It's
a
true.
dangerous thing.
It's very
People
true.
just don't realize
I don't
carnage.
think. Yeah, I don't think
you know,
people realize how dangerous, you know, a nuclear. How devastating a nuclear war would be. There's not enough fear of it anymore.
Well, just a statistic, Rick. 160 Canadian Armed Forces personnel killed in Afghanistan over 10 years, or how many years they were there? Can you imagine that wouldn't even be a day's total compared to what's going on in Ukraine and Russia war? That wouldn't even be a day's total. Can you imagine double that letters going to Canadian parents that they lost a child in combat? Like that just puts it into clear perspective of how crazy they are. For where's the peace negotiations for ending this slaughter?
I don't know.
To me, that just borders on evil. But anyway, thanks for taking my call, Rick. I'll let you take another caller, and have a good night on that happy note.
Thank you. All right.
Bye for now. Bye now.
Let's move on to
Bye-bye.
Deborah. Hello, Deborah. How are you tonight?
Hey, Rick. I'm okay, thanks. How are you?
I'm just fine, thank you.
Good. Wow, it was a long wait. I was vacuuming while I was waiting.
Oh.
I had to.
So what's on your mind?
Yeah, so I've got some points that I, over the last few shows, and Pierre Poilievre, for me, it's what he doesn't do and say that seem to alert me, and still no follow-up on the fact that he hasn't read anything about the SDGs, and the fact that he supports the Ukrainian war and was wearing the Ukrainian flag around his neck, standing by Trudeau, kind of disturbs me. And the fact that he's so pumped up and ready to hire outsiders to come into our medical system, and not willing to hire or even mentioning the people that were unjustly fired that he could immediately bring in to our medical system to help us again. those things alone are disturbing to me. To me, that says he's controlled opposition. I don't trust him. I just don't. Like, just the fact that he's supporting the war is disturbing to me. And the way he said it so vehemently with that flag around his neck, the way they've demonized the Canadian flag is atrocious. I'm almost nervous to hold the flag. I went out freedoming on Saturday, and with a whole bunch of people, we stood out on the highway with all our flags and stuff. And thankfully, we did get a lot more honks and waves than we got the finger, but we still get the finger. It's incredible, mind-boggling as it is, you know. And with DeSantis, my thing about him is that Soros actually did a live video saying he supports DeSantis. That right there disturbs me as much as Harper supporting Trudeau, because they're both being supported by corrupt entities. That makes me really question it all. So, you know, I just am not buying it all.
Who supported Trudeau? Did you say Harper?
Soros.
Oh, Soros. Sorry.
Harper. Harper supported Trudeau and Soros supports DeSantis. So, like, Harper did a video endorsing Trudeau.
When?
No.
Harper.
I'd have to find the video, but yeah, Harper did it was almost a year ago now. He put a video out endorsing Trudeau. Endorsing Poilievre, sorry.
Okay.
Harper endorsing Poilievre.
Yes,
sorry.
he did. Yeah, he endorsed Poilievre. Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Not
so
Trudeau.
That disturbs me.
I did.
Yeah, sorry, I got. Yeah, sorry, I got kerfuffled. And then with Soros supporting DeSantis, like that, all of that doesn't sit well with me. Also, the Zelensky thing. Well, my goodness, I hope people are paying attention, because Ukraine is the test ground for the WEF to implement digital IDs. So that is actually happening now as we speak. So terrifyingly, it's the Ukraine's new digital transformation program just started, and it's connected to the Silicon Valley and the Silicon banks. I mean, I don't know why people aren't seeing how all of this seems to be utterly connected. And the fact that they're calling for Putin under war crimes and want to arrest him boggles my mind, because Zelensky is the yucca-futz that there's so much evidence going around proving that he's loaded with war crimes out the yin-yang, including now, I don't know if you saw it, but the Red Cross, Ukrainian Red Cross, are actually out there taping Ukrainians to the polls too now. I mean, there's just crazy crap going on, and so many war crimes going on, and they're all running amok, and yet they're calling for Putin. You know, we want to arrest him for war crimes. I don't see his war crimes. I see him defending his country. I see him holding a lot of restraint since 2014. People don't seem to be paying attention with all of that. That drives me crazy. And frankly, I used to hate Trump myself, and but I used to watch mainstream media, and I saw him as the orange man and obnoxious and all of that kind of stuff. Couldn't stand the man. Couldn't tell you exactly why I couldn't stand him. I just couldn't stand him. I haven't watched mainstream media since about 9 years. And boy, have my eyes ever been opened. I can't say I really like them, but at the same time, I'm very open-minded now. I'm paying attention. I'm watching it all. And I don't have the hate that I used to carry with me on him. I've been woke up. And for the caller that was just called about, was asking about banks, there's a website he can go to, and it's called the Canadian Bankers Association, and it has the entire list of all the banks that are about to go digital in Canada. You might want to go on there, and if your bank is one of them, get out. Get out now. and put it into a credit union. I'm no banker, but I would suggest credit union because at least they're private and they'll be the last to go down. They'll buy you time at the very least. So the Canadian Bankers Association is something I would highly recommend. And you know what? Here's the thing about voters. This has drove me nuts for a long time, and it's really come to a head. The farmers in the Netherlands had a big win. I was so excited about that. It was like, I was amazed that they pulled that off, and it's incredible. People in Canada are stuck in the loop of you have to vote for the lesser of the evils because no one else is going to win. So we have to put up with kind of corrupt in order to not have fully corrupt. It makes no sense to me. I just wish Canadians would finally get together like the people in the Netherlands actually did, and they put a party together and they actually won. Like they actually got in, and now they can stop what's happening. See, the thing is people are willing to just settle for the lesser of the evils, and that's what Canada's been doing for many years. I mean, ever since I started voting and I'd ask for advice about voting, I'd be told, oh, you got to vote for the lesser evils. And I'd say, but I don't like that guy. But you have to. If you do, you're voting for the guy that's either going to split the votes or you're you know what I mean? Like, it's just, everything is.
So you, obviously you're Canadian. So who would you vote for if there were an election today?
That I can't tell you. I thought I had an answer even a week ago, and now I'm just, you know, you know what I mean?
I suspect you're down to two choices, right? You're trying to pick between Polyev or Maxime Bernier. Am I correct or no?
Unfortunately, that seems to be all we got.
Yeah.
And, you know, I mean, I don't know. But, I mean, quite honestly, the whole, like, I don't know how we can break out of this cycle that we're in, but it's quite the cycle. And also on a final note, I wanted to mention, I wrote my MLA and didn't expect an email back, and it took a long time, but I finally got an email, and I took it with me to the Freedoming group, and they were utterly impressed. First of all, they couldn't believe I got an answer at all. Then they couldn't believe the response that I got. It was actually utterly impressive, and he's from, my MLA is the Thompson Caribou, and he's the Associate Shadow Minister of Justice and Attorney General. And I got this incredibly great email back about Bill C-11, and it was very encouraging. I'd be happy to send it to you. I don't know if I'd have time to read it to you, but yeah, it was. In fact, one of the leaders of the group here was like, "Oh my God, that's inspiring! I can't believe he wrote you that." Mm-hmm. Did you sign it? She said. And I said, "Yeah." So, I mean, I don't know what shadow minister means for Justice and Attorney General. I don't know.
It means that, like, the Conservatives are not in power, right? They haven't formed government. They're in opposition. So what Polyev has done, and this is common, is he handpicks his key cabinet or his key MPs. And then he forms a shadow government, like it mirrors what the government is doing. So the federal government, the Liberals, they have a justice minister. He'll have a shadow justice minister who also follows the portfolio, but then that's his area of specialty. And during question period, his shadow justice minister might be the go-to guy to stand up and ask questions in the House during question period. And then what we've seen in the last couple of weeks, I mentioned this yesterday, you're going to see a lot more of this. Polyev is, when he's making these announcements and these stops and this sort of like pre-election campaign tour that he's doing right now, he's bringing along with him whichever shadow minister is related to whatever announcement he's making. So if it's housing, then he would bring his shadow housing minister with him, and then after he's done making his statement, he brings that shadow minister forward. What he's doing is he's telegraphing to the public that he's ready to govern. He has the team in place. He's organized, ready to go, competent,
Of course he is.
and ready to do it. So people can have confidence in him and his team if they vote for him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess my MLA must be a conservative then. If
Very
he's
likely.
calling
Yeah, I think
himself
so. I'm not sure which riding you're in.
an associate
Yes.
shadow minister.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Huh. Well, it was an encouraging thing that he's fighting. He's saying no to the bill C11, C18 all the way.
Mm-hmm.
When he's in there, but yeah, it's hard to imagine. I mean, we've got so much corruption going on at every turn that it's hard to have faith in anything coming around, really. But it just seems really like, you know, it's hard to stomach all this talk, like Freeland again, putting more money out somewhere. I can't remember where. And all this money going to the Ukraine. We know it's a money laundering scheme. It is. And Canadians are suffering. There is no attempts to help our people. Our borders are wide open. We got more and more people coming in that we cannot support. And, I would have a lot more faith in Poilievre if he, actually started talking about the SDGs. I would have more faith in him if he didn't support the supply chain that Trudeau put in place, but he actually came out and actually said he supports it. That really bothered me.
What do you mean he supports the supply chain?
There's a supply chain system that Trudeau put in place, and actually Scheer, no, not Scheer. Oh, that other guy that.
What do you mean by that?
He looks like
when they refer to the supply chain, what they're really referring to is something. It's just about the way the economy works. There are supply chains for every kind of industry, right? So when they say the supply chain is broken, what they mean is production is broken. When COVID came along and they implemented the lockdowns and shut down businesses, they broke the supply chains because if you take, for instance, like the supply chain for the auto industry, you have assembly plants that are run by the big auto companies like Ford, General Motors, Honda, right? Toyota. They rely on parts plants. Those parts plants become part of the supply chain, and they get raw materials from like steel plants. And then the steel plants get raw materials from like mining operations, right? To make the steel. So it's a chain. And each industry has its own sort of supply chain. And those supply chains are like multi-pronged. Like the steel industry supplies a lot of different industries. That's why government, I'm not a big fan of big government, and I don't think government can plan the economy. They want to control everything. But as the economist Milton Friedman so correctly points out, supply chains, the economy is extremely complicated. And there's a great video of him out there talking about how a pencil is made and everything that goes into making a pencil. Have you seen that video? I'll bring it up another night. But it's like, if you think about just what goes into manufacturing a pencil, it's extremely complex. And yet government doesn't make that happen. It's just people who recognize market signals and respond to the point where you get a pen or a pencil. Because somebody has to make the plastic for this pen. Somebody has to make the ink. Somebody has to, make the machine to put the printing on it. Like all the things that go into
I wish I could remember
getting it to market. That's not government doing that, man. That is people just figuring it out. And
I wish I could remember the details. Yeah, it is. I agree. I wish I could remember the details. This was over a year ago now that one of the conservative opposition, I can't remember his name. Yeah, I can't remember his name right now. My mind's going blank. But he called it, like, the changes that Trudeau made to the supply chain were Soviet style. And I'd have to go find that again, but it was disturbing at the time. That was the term he used: Soviet style changes to the supply chain.
Yeah.
And that anyway. So I mean, you know, there's just those things. I wish he would, you know, stand up for our nurses and our doctors and bring them back in ASAP. If he was really there for us and wanting to support Canadians, he would do exactly that. He would win my vote alone on just that.
Mm-hmm.
And yet he doesn't. So there's things to think about, right? Like, you know, and again, the lesser of the evils and all that kind of stuff. I get it. You know, this is what Canadians do. Pick the lesser of the evils. But man, it would be real nice to break the mold one day and get out.
I'm less critical of Poilievre than you. I think that he's a political realist. And in the position he's in, he needs to get people to support him. And I think he's realistic about the political landscape, the political environment, the way people think. And here's the other thing I think that people lose sight of. The solution to our political problems is not, in my view, it does not solely lie in creating some new party, or, you know, because it's our system, and no system should be, and a zero-sum game, an all or nothing proposition. It's like, if your party gets in, then you get to change it all, and then you fix it and it's fixed. That's not the solution. You know what the solution is? You have to win people's support through winning their minds and their hearts. You have to change the public attitude, make them aware of the issues that are out there, and get more public support on board for the issues. The it doesn't matter what party you have or what you call your party. What matters is the policies in the end, what the government does.
Yeah, for sure.
What people vote for.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. But again, if he got in, does that mean that the support for the war is going to continue? That's disturbing.
If that should have been, and should be, it could be an election issue, right? And people, if they want to hold the government's feet to the fire, then they should be out there protesting and letting them know, and writing letters to their members of parliament, and standing up against it to make them aware that we're not supporting it. And if you support the war, we're not going to vote for you. Right?
Yeah. Well,
that's all.
That might be my next email to my MLA. But it's just, unfortunately, you know, you get to our Governor General, who is a WEF. It just ends up hitting a brick wall again because of that. Yeah. So we're kind of damned if we do and damned if we don't, it seems, somehow, right?
Well, get enough people, you know, to understand and support your position, and hold the politicians' feet to the fire, and you can make a change. And get involved. That's what I've been saying for a long time. Yeah. And speaking of that, we better jump off the call, because we do have somebody who is getting involved in politics, and he's waiting in the wings. Derek Smith is going to join us as soon as we come back from the break. So thank you very much for the call.
Sounds good.
All right, take care.
Okay, thanks, Rick.
See you, bye.
Okay, you too. Bye.
All right, so we're going to drop out of the calls. Sorry for leaving some of you folks hanging there, but our guest has arrived. So let me just get everything set up here. I'm going to pull out of that, and we'll run a little transition here. And when we come back, Derek Smith, Calgary's next mayor, will join us.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals. Defenders of individual rights and freedoms. Credible. Trusted. Grounded in reality. Maverick News. Defending free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow. Maybe too late. Too late. Too late. Too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Okay, let's bring him in. Our feature interview tonight. Hello, sir. How are you tonight?
I'm great, Rick. How are you? Thanks for having me back again.
My pleasure. Thank you for coming back.
My pleasure.
Exciting news. You're running for mayor.
Well, you could call it that, I guess. Yeah, I'd been talking with some folks on council and like-minded individuals, and for a couple of months now, the idea of running for this position eventually, as like we've still got a couple of years to go until the next civic election, but there's talks about Alberta's recall policies and the possibility of our current mayor being recalled for some of the things she's doing on citizens' behalf. So I kind of wanted to throw my hat into the ring a little early and have time to prepare. So we've made the announcement as of Friday that I'm going to be running for mayor, I guess, in the next civic election.
Yeah, it is early in the game, but yeah, if you're out there early, that's good, and it helps you because it's an uphill battle getting the public to be aware of your presence in the campaign, and
absolutely.
And as you say, like what are the issues here for you? What is it that inspired you to get involved?
Look, for years I've been talking about the overspending of council, whether it's city council or when you talk about provincial or federal. The biggest problem, I've always been libertarian when it comes to taxes, and I believe that taxes are theft at the end of the day. Now, taxes are necessary in order to pay for roads, to pay for programs, to pay for services. But the problem that I keep seeing is that there's a lot of ridiculous spending that goes on when it comes to art projects, when it comes to vanity projects for the cities and the provinces, for that matter, sometimes, especially federally. There's a lot of studies that are done that are unnecessary, that waste taxpayers' dollars. Every single year in Calgary, like clockwork, we seem to see about a 4 to 5% increase on our property taxes, which is not only bad for property owners in the city, it's bad for business owners, it's bad for renters because their landlords obviously increase their rents to the points where they're unaffordable. And while I've complained about those things for the last few years, my primary concern, and part of what shot me to declare my candidacy, is a new bill that Mayor Jyoti Gondek has put into place. She exercised an emergency bill back during lockdowns that was used for COVID to stop people from protesting in large numbers around City Hall. This was supposed to be a temporary measure, much like other temporary measures we've heard about. And she's now putting that into a full-time bylaw to say that anybody who protests against these drag time story hours or anything to do against the transgender community can now face fines of up to $10,000 or 6 months in jail. And any city-owned property, they'll have a 100-foot border to which people are not allowed to protest or speak their piece. And then recently has put out a letter stating that now in Alberta, or in Calgary, I should say, city-owned facilities like pools, gymnasiums, etc., anyone is free to use any dressing room they choose based on how they feel. And to me, that's a huge red flag for children, especially when no one is vetted. There's no criminal record checks. Any person feeling any way could just walk into a change room and watch anyone's children undress. We've heard of issues in Calgary already where somebody had claimed they were exposed by a man in a women's change room, and the police said they found no fault. But this is just the tip of the iceberg. I feel like they've kind of opened a Pandora's box, and I think the time's come for somebody to say and do something about it. And I'd rather use what popularity, celebrity, what I've built up over the last 8 months to put that on a positive spin and try to run for the city and give everybody a voice. So we're going to move ahead.
Yeah. I mean, you've been building your social media following because of the books that you've written. It's put you sort of on the national stage in a way. So you do have quite a following. Is that translating into support for you at the local level in Calgary?
Extremely. And I've been very surprised by the level of support that's come through since our Friday announcement. A number of businesses reaching out, asking how to contribute, how to donate, how to get involved. Now, unfortunately, we're not there yet. But I'm very happy to see the encouraged support from those businesses, from certain individuals that just want to get involved. I've spoken to some high ups, including Dr. Jordan Peterson when I met with him last month in Calgary. And he actually is what gave me the bump to move forward with this, where he said, the best way to get involved is to get involved municipally, whether it be a school board or the mayoral seat or as a alderman or anywhere on those school trustees, simply because, we're getting overwhelmed when it comes to government, when it comes to these agendas that are being pushed forward onto people, whether it be from the WEF, whether it be from Chinese interference. If bright-minded individuals and people are at the bottom of the pyramid, then if they have any form of power, they can start fighting back against these policies and start working towards benefiting the people of their cities, the people of their ridings, and so on and so forth. And hopefully it moves outwards to where we get to provincial, where we get to federal.
I'm so glad to hear you saying that, because people don't realize how much influence, how much power, how much impact municipal government has on their day-to-day life. In many respects, it's more impactful on people than even provincial or federal government, because they're dealing with your garbage pickup, your the streets and the potholes, all of the things that you sort of deal with day to day. And when federal and provincial governments come up with policies, a lot of this stuff filters right down to the municipalities. They sort of download those responsibilities to municipalities. So it's
Right.
up to you at the municipal level to implement them. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, the biggest problem in Calgary is right on that nose mark, is that back in the Ralph Klein days, they had a deal go through with energy companies to take off the caps. So now people in Calgary, the average citizen is seeing, I'd say, a utility bill. If you were to do your electric, your gas, your city utilities, everything in one bill, people are seeing an average bill of $500, $600, $700 a month on average for all of their service, just to turn their lights on, run their water, and heat their homes. Last year, there was an article that outraged me in the city saying that people were wearing winter jackets and ski pants in their homes because they couldn't afford to turn up their thermostats. That's a huge problem. When you talk about essential services during the lockdowns, how is heating your home not an essential service? Anytime these companies come back and say, well, we're going to rebate, like I give props to Danielle Smith for saying we're going to send rebates to people for energy bills or for their families to afford things. But when these companies come back and say, well, we're going to rebate a couple $100 in a few months and give you some money back, you're not giving us money back. You're giving back the money you were told to because you're charging us too much. And that has to come to a stop. People need to be able to afford to live.
Right. So what's it going to take to win the race? I mean, you're going to need money. You're going to need a team.
Yeah, I've already started the process of building that team. I've been in touch with some well-known former MPs, as well as some people that are still in political realm. And I don't really want to drop any names right now because we're still at the early stages of planning. But I've also been in touch with some folks that I've met through outside of the Freedom Convoy, through the Freedom Convoy, and some of their folks that were good with fundraising and that were good with getting political aspirations across the map. So I don't see us having too much of a hurdle to cross when it comes to funding this campaign or getting people on board with it. The consensus that I've seen, again, since Friday, and Twitter is such a toxic place, but I honestly expected a lot of blowback when I made the announcement that I'm going to run for mayor. And I'd say 98% of the comments were positive. And it seems like there's a very strong collective of people in Calgary that are just fed up. They're fed up paying for nothing. When it comes to our property taxes or any of our fees or taxes that we pay, we're charging people on a 1 to 10 scale at an 11, and we're giving them a 3. And we can't do that anymore. So what needs to happen is it needs to be more attractive to businesses. It needs to be more attractive to the average consumer to be here. This was once a booming city. Oil and gas, we have some of the cleanest practices in the world. And we need to promote those. We need to be the world leader in that and set an example. And we need to make it attractive for those businesses to come back, because somebody had asked me about the vacancy rate in Calgary and said, are you in agreement to put in affordable housing? I said, if the housing is necessary, yes, put in the affordable housing. But in terms of downtown, get people working again, get the businesses back here. We've been shutting out businesses for the last 5 years, and it's just not feasible if you want a city to succeed.
And even though you're running at the municipal level, Calgary is one of Canada's largest cities.
Yes.
It's one of the most important economically. So
Yep.
anybody sitting in that chair does actually have a voice on the national stage. How would you use that voice at that level?
For one, I want to promote freedom of expression. I want to be. I'm so sick of this woke nonsense when it comes to politics. Government doesn't have a job in telling people what to think, what to believe, what to put medically in their lives. They don't. Our position and our job as public servants is to do what's best for the people in terms of their services, their roadways, their way of life. I would want to have an open door policy as the mayor to say that I want to listen to the people around here and I want to promote ideas coming in from our people, because Calgary is such a booming city of different cultures from all over the world that it's important to learn things. We don't know everything, and it's important to take that in. But when it comes to the world stage, I think it's time to say enough of the woke nonsense and let's get to work. Let's start promoting what works for this world. I'm all for alternative energy sources, but we're not there yet. We're going to need oil and gas indefinitely for the future. And I'm happy to use those things while researching other methods of energy, so to speak, when it comes to fuel for vehicles or fuel for your homes. But in the meantime, let's use it responsibly. And let's be a world leader in that. Let's set by example. So that's what I'd like to do.
You have sort of declared war on woke.
Yes.
Can you elaborate any more on that?
Well, I mean, Michelle Rempel Garnier said it best when she slipped the tongue in Parliament, and she said, "Enough of this woke shit." And that's exactly where I'm getting to. Is that Christine Anderson was in Calgary just over a month ago, and Mayor Jody Gondek spent a week and a half on Twitter tweeting out wanting to find out whether or not she got a white hat. Now, the white cowboy hat is a ceremony that goes on in Calgary whenever an honored guest comes to town, where they're presented with the white cowboy hat. And rather than tackling the homeless people in bus shelters right now that are doing drugs and attacking people or that have nowhere to go, she's worried about white cowboy hats. That's not what a mayor is supposed to do. We need to focus on policy. We need to focus on what's good for our people. And the woke stuff is just really a pivotal point that's stopping us from moving forward. We have to be less concerned about how people view things and more concerned about how do we give people what they need. Ben Shapiro said it best when he said, fact doesn't care about your feelings. And I feel that the times come where I care about how people feel, but at the end of the day, business is business, and we need to get down to business or this city's going to crumble.
Yeah. Where is your support coming from? I would think it must be coming from freedom movement people, mostly because of your books and the work you've done online, but you need to appeal to a broader cross section.
Yep.
Where do you think you're sitting on that spectrum?
One thing I found really surprising, again, when I talk about the amazing support that's come forward, is that I figured it would be the same thing. A lot of freedom convoy type folks, any protesters from last year moving into this year, talking about rights and freedoms and processes. But surprisingly, the people that have reached out to me and engaged with me have actually been all over the province as well as in the city, saying, I want to move to Calgary to support you. I want to come and they've just said, I've just had enough of government. I've had enough of the overreach. Regular everyday citizens are reaching out to me, finding me online through different methods right now, saying, I can't believe you've made this announcement. I've heard of your books. I don't have them, but I'm so grateful that you're stepping up, because somebody needs to, that is not involved in City Hall, that is not involved as a lawyer or an accountant or the typical person that runs for this position, that may have big companies lining their pockets for policy pushing. And that's essentially what I want to try to run with my campaign, is a campaign that's funded by change, not by people looking for a handout.
Right. At the municipal level, of course, in Canada, we don't have party politics as much of a factor there.
Mm-hmm.
So is that an opportunity for you maybe to bring a wider group of people into your circle and win those hearts and minds?
Well, I think when they say the mayoral race, they always say the same thing as you just mentioned. We don't really affiliate with a political party. And that's one of the reasons that I find it attractive to run for mayor, is because I've always been party neutral. And I've talked about that in our interviews in the past, Rick, that, I tend to weigh my vote based on what's going to work best for my lifestyle. When it comes to people voting municipally, I would ask people, if you enjoy paying more taxes, if you want to pay more at the pump, if you want to, struggle to find work, if you if you want less services, vote for the other guy. If you want a break, if you want an average person who has had to decide, do I pay my utility bill or put food in the fridge? Then this is where your vote matters, because those are the things I'm going to be taking care of and thinking about when I'm sitting in that chair. Is that I've been there, and I'm not someone who's been overprivileged in the city for 25 years, rubbing elbows with high-end executives. I think it's important to get more. If anything, I want to strike a movement with other cities to see what's going on between myself. I've had conversations with Chris Sky. We need more people that are willing to step up, that are willing to take the attacks, that are willing to say, enough is enough. No more dirty politicians. Let's get some real average Joes in these cities that care about these cities and that are willing to make some changes.
Why don't you tell people a little bit more about your background, since they're going to want to know that before they cast their
Sure.
ballot?
Well, in terms of education, I have a degree in business and marketing, which, if you can tell by my books, I understand branding, and I understand business in terms of helping to run a corporation. And aside from that, when it comes to qualifications to run a city, I find that it all comes down to the team that you build and the minds that you're willing to listen to. And like I said, I am willing to listen to people from all different aspects of the political spectrum, so long as their argument is making sense. I think one transition that comes from business school that I was always told is that there's no decision you can ever make that's going to please everybody, and the person who tries to is a fool. But at the same time, I was always told that the best salesman was the best listener. And I think it transitions well into the mayoral position that, like I said, with an open door policy, I'm not always going to be right. And I'm willing to admit that. I think taking a consensus from people, the people who are paying my salary, the people who are paying for the services of the city, it's important to listen to what they have to say and put forward the best uses of their money that we can for the city. If there's things that council wants to do that we can't afford, we find a way to afford it without taxing the people, or we put it on the shelf and say, maybe next year.
We keep hearing about things, like 15-minute cities and municipalities adopting things, these kinds of policies aimed at getting to those globalist goals, I guess. What are your views on that with regard to Calgary? I'm not even sure where Calgary is on that front.
Right. So I've heard lots of stories about Edmonton announcing that they're planning for 15-minute cities. When it comes to convenience for people, I live in a neighborhood where there's a Walmart nearby, there's big box, there's grocery stores, there's movie theaters, but that design's been there for 25 years. And I'm not going to say that's a 15-minute city. But if the topic of 15-minute cities ever comes up or arrives in Calgary, I've been doing a little bit of research in terms of, I mean, when I'm doing my YouTube videos, we look at, what are 15-minute cities? What is the goal with 15-minute cities? I've been following a lot of what the World Economic Forum has been pitching on that. I can tell you right now, none of that has any place in Calgary if I'm the mayor. I will not entertain that idea. I am not interested in that idea. Again, control seems to be the end goal with 15-minute cities.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think the government has a right to control its citizens. I don't think it has the right to do anything but serve the people. And that's what we need to get back to.
Right. I mean, it comes down to urban planning and efficiency. But yeah, I mean, at the core of all that, there has
to be a balance.
Yeah. What else would you like to add tonight, Derek? Is there anything you think I might be missing?
Well, I understand that a lot of my views when it comes to the trans community are going to be met with a lot of hostility. And I understand that people are going to think that I don't understand what it means to have those feelings or to have to go through those feelings. I've said multiple times that I'm very supportive of gay rights. I have family members within the community that are married, and I've attended their weddings, and I'm very grateful for what they have. In fact, they just adopted a child, and I approve of those things too. I think when it comes down to taste and appropriation, certain events need to be for 18 plus, whether they're straight, whether they're part of the gay community, whether they're trans. appropriation for children. I think kids need to be kids. It's the one thing that's really bumped me into this race now as a concerned citizen as well as a candidate. And I think that's the main focus that people need to realize at the end of the day, is that I'm not here to attack anybody. I'm here to keep the kids safe. And I look forward to representing my city and hopefully taking that position.
That's awesome. Well, I wish you all the luck in the world. And
thank you so much.
I think it's so refreshing to see people stepping forward to get involved. It's very positive. There's been, Derek, I think you're inspiring really in what you're doing, because
I hope so.
So many people are so discouraged and they feel like there's no hope. And I've been saying for a long time, just get involved. You can make a difference. And, we've had somebody even here locally in my town who got elected to council. She's already making a difference. You can make a difference. And I salute you.
And that's the one thing that it's funny you say that, because a lot of people say, like, when my councilman approached me and said, would you be interested? Again, they did that solely based on people knowing who I am based on my books. And I said, I'm flattered. And one thing I'm grateful for is those books have now given me a platform to use my voice. But I'm still the same guy I was 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 5 years ago. I'm grateful that, again, I've been given this opportunity based on what I've done over the last year. But my point is that citizens with good intentions, with good policy, with good thoughts behind them, can make huge changes when they're not fueled by corporation. And I think we need more of that. And I hope it does inspire people to step up. Do I think I'm going to win this seat? I honestly don't know at this point. The outpouring of support has shown me that maybe we stand a chance. But at the end of the day, even if I were to lose this, if it ignites a spark in people to say, maybe we should step up and make a change, please, that's all I want out of this. And I'll be happy just to see that.
Awesome. Derek Smith, thank you so much for joining us on the program tonight. And we'll have you back, because there's
absolutely
a lot of time between now and election day. And
well,
we'll have to revisit.
I spend a lot of time here, Rick. You're going to have to start charging me rent, but I'm happy to come back anytime.
Thank you.
Thank
Derek
you for
Smith,
having
everybody.
me. Take care.
All right. And there you have it, folks. Derek Smith running for mayor of Calgary. And that's awesome. We'll take a brief break and we'll come back and we'll go back to the phones, because I know that you guys have been deprived. We haven't gone to the phones in the last couple of days. So we'll make up for some lost time right after this. Don't go away.
Fear not the storm, for truth is on our side. Maverick News. The world is watching. Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals. Defenders of individual rights and freedoms. Credible. Trusted. Grounded in reality. Maverick News. Maverick News. Defending free speech. Free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
The phone lines are open. Here's how you can join the conversation.
Join the conversation. Call 1-833-975-3733. That's 1-833-975-FREE. Speak up. Speak out. Make your voice heard. Maverick News. Fighting for freedom by defending your right to free speech. Be a Maverick. Join us.
Okay, folks, time to go back to the phones, and here we go. Who do we have with us tonight?
Oh, hi, Rick. It's Steve calling.
Hey, how's it going?
Not too bad. You caught me off guard there. I was just talking to your answering service there, and so when it beeped, I wasn't sure if I was actually on, but I guess I am.
Here we are.
Remember a while back we were talking about electric cars? Oh, actually, before we get to that, I wanted to compliment you on your new commercial, or what do you call those?
Promo transition thing.
Yes, I like this one. I was getting kind of tired of the other ones, and so it's a nice reprieve.
I'm going to make a bunch of new ones. Takes me a little time, though. We're a little busy around here, but I'll get to it. Thank you.
Yeah, I imagine it takes quite a bit of time. And not to say anything bad about the others, it's a nice change, that's all. And the music with this one better. Anyway, we were talking about electric cars a while back, and over the weekend, I saw a report out of Australia. I think it was on their Sky News, and it was talking about electric cars and fires. And in Queensland, they get on average one domestic call a week for a electric vehicle that has caught fire at someone's home.
Wow.
Yeah, I knew there was a lot, but that caught me off guard. And I don't know. I just think electric cars are premature, and I can't say enough bad about them. I could go on at length, and I'm sure you could.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to give you that heads up on that. And I've been looking into some stuff around this Chinese thing, and I think it is far bigger than we have any idea about. And obviously, it's not just here in Canada. And I don't know what started it in my mind, but I had noticed some parallels between Biden and Trudeau, and that sent me off down a rabbit hole. And there is more dots than I figured to connect. I haven't connected them all, but when I get there, I'll update you. But it's kind of interesting that as we've learned recently, well, I guess we started learning about it a couple of years ago, but Biden was getting lots of money funneled through a foundation and seems to be receiving, kickbacks through a foundation. Trudeau, the same. And there's some other similarities. And anyway, it kind of led me to Australia. There's some similarities down there in Australia as well, and a couple other countries. But I just think that China might be a bigger threat for the globe than we have any idea. And anyway, I'll update you when I get further along and have actual points to refer to. And
interesting you kind of say that, though. It's people talk about the left and the right and communists and conservatives, and and Russia is so much different than the United States. No, you know what? It's amazing at how similar countries are, how similar the systems are, how similar governments are, even if they're labeled this or that. It is truly amazing. And there is no pure capitalist system. There is no pure communist system out there today. Everything is sort of a hybrid. And then all of our countries are interconnected. And it's unfortunate that this war is sort of disconnecting us. But you looking at these similarities and the way that these campaigns are being run, or maybe the way even money is flowing, the one thing that is unique and different about the Chinese is I think they have really found a way to influence other countries through the flow of money. I'm not even sure if that is that much different in a way than what the US does, except that the US and NATO, they use military might to back everything up and to coerce countries into doing their bidding, not just money. But the Chinese, as much as they're supposed to be a communist country, they're really a mercantile country. They're all about the economy and doing deals, and that's what they're focused on. And I would say that in that way, they're much more success. They have been much more successful in spreading their influence globally. And in some cases, though, yes, you're right. The money, I think, is, well, we know it's flowing in sort of illegally and through back doors and in shadowy ways to politicians, bureaucrats, people, and institutions where they can exert influence financially through money.
Yeah. What you're saying about the, purely communist or socialist versus capitalist, or I've been saying that for a number of years, and I was pretty much just out of, I guess it was out of college at that point. I went to university and then college after. And I was doing an internship, and one day I was just talking to one of the guys, and I had made a comment. The next day I got called into the boss's office, almost got fired over my comment. And to this day, I don't know why they were so fired up about it. But I had said, I was comparing, and I wasn't into politics really at the time, but I was comparing the economies of North America, Chinese. And I said, if you think about it, I would say that right now, China is probably more capitalistic than United States or Canada. And I would say that we're behaving more communistic than China or whatever. Mm-hmm. And a month later, so I got called in, they almost fired me over this. And a month later, I think it was Time Magazine, had a headline, most capitalistic place in the world is Hong Kong. And
yep.
I just left the magazine on the table in the front of our office one day.
Yeah.
But
although Hong Kong was at that time not really part of China, and it was a hub of capitalistic activity for sure. Not communist, but that's a different story. But yeah, but even China,
exactly. Yeah.
You look at all the manufacturing that's there. We rely on China. We talked about supply chains. Our supply chain is entirely reliant on China now for just about every industry we have, including our food industry. They're absolutely capitalistic that way.
Yeah. Yeah, we ship chickens over there to get processed and have them brought back as, chicken breasts and chicken thighs or whatever. I mean, we could easily do that here. It would be far cheaper in my estimation, but it's some part of a trade deal that just doesn't make any sense. And actually, now that I think about it, 2 nights ago, I think you had a caller, actually it might have been longer than that, around the drug stuff. And she had said, she brought up the opium wars. And I really don't think that she's too far off. There's a lot of evidence to say that they are using opium. I mean, we're talking about a culture that's 5,000 years old. They've been through this opium trade and opium war before. And, I think that it might be an element of a soft war that they're conducting. There's a lot of evidence to support that.
Yeah, I would not honestly be that surprised. I think they're.
It caught me off guard. I wasn't thinking down that avenue, and then all of a sudden, I heard somebody make that argument not too long ago. And then that caller brought it up, And I got thinking about it afterwards. I'm like, yeah, you know what? There's maybe more evidence to China being the aggressor, but just they're so good at doing it softly that, and that's a technique, right? Just passively overwhelm, just either by population or in soft ways, just overwhelm your opponent.
Yeah. It's pretty sinister if they are engaging it in that way. And if it's not the government, it's certainly drug cartels that are bringing the drugs in. Regardless, it is definitely having severe negative impacts on our society and our economy because it makes people unproductive and destroys their lives.
And you're right, the government just might be turning a blind eye, and that's a passive form of involvement right there. A tacit, there you go, carry on.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's, I had a friend who wanted to get into the business of selling lifts for like garage lifts for cars.
Right.
So he was looking at different possible products that he could retail and sell. So he started to look at suppliers and ended up taking a trip to China. And he went through the factory where they manufacture lifts in China. And it was a huge facility. And while he was taking the tour, the guy giving the tour, he turned to him and he said, this place is so big, you could supply the entire world with lifts for cars. And the guy looked at him and he went, yeah,
we do.
That's what we want to do. They think on a scale like that over there. And that's sort of the part of the difference, right? That has helped propel China to the level that they're at today. We need to change our attitude over here too. But government, I think, is largely the problem, not the solution. That's just my opinion. They're in the way.
I agree. It dumbfounds me how insular our government's become and small-minded. When you think about the mega projects that we did in the early, 20th century, like just look at the Hoover Dam. The idea to build something that large to dam water up just boggles my mind. Or Northern Quebec, and get it done.
Yeah.
I would, to me, I would have been thinking, let's have a bunch of smaller dams in different places to take on something like that. You got Lake Mead out of the deal. It's like that's pretty substantial.
Yeah. Have you been to the Hoover Dam? Have you seen it?
No.
It is
actually,
so big.
It has sparked interest in me. So I've just looked at pictures and read kind of the history about how many people were involved in the construction of it and where the concrete came from. And
yeah, I went there. I've been there. It's massive, unbelievable.
I think I'd get vertigo.
Wow. It's just what an achievement, an engineering miracle, a marvel, unbelievable. And I think that we've lost a lot of that, that optimism, that forward-looking, positive, can-do spirit, that we used to have back in like the 50s and the 60s and just, prior, just lots of generations before. But I don't know, there's something lacking. Now everybody looks to the government for everything. And I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. We know we do have SpaceX. It just doesn't feel like, maybe it's just because some things are just too commonplace and we take too much for granted. There's still a lot of positive stuff going on out there, but.
I find that there's when the government does something, or even when they contract it out, there's never a long game. There's no longevity in anything anymore. I just think about our hydro projects, and it's all they do now is patch, and there's no, I don't know, staying power to it. And I think maybe the government should never have sold it off. I think about Ontario and how they sold it to Ontario Hydro and then Hydro One, and with each successive purchaser, it just seems to get more feeble.
Yeah.
And to me, hydro seems to be something that should be easily solved and could be a long-term thing. We're still using components that are 100 years old, and the modern component seems to be the parts that don't last. And just the idea of not hardening the grid. Why would we not harden the grid? Something's going to happen, whether it be a solar flare or, heaven forbid, an EMP. Something's going to happen one day, and we're going to have another version of, 2001 when our grid went down here in Ontario?
Oh, yes, I remember. Yeah, I remember that well.
Yeah, I had just actually left. I was in the territories at the time, but I've experienced them. I was down east for a long spell without hydro. It was a little colder.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that blackout lasted. How long did that go on? A week?
The one here in Ontario,
Yes.
I think it went on over like 12 days, I think.
Yeah, something like that.
My family's up in the area, so I think they told me they were without power for about 12 days.
Yeah, it was somewhere in that range. I remember it. I can't remember the exact number of days, but I was still working in television, and I covered that every day. And that was different, man. That was an extended blackout. And it just showed the vulnerability of the power grid. It showed how people were vulnerable, right? Because people had their food spoiling in the refrigerators. We all got through it. It wasn't a complete disaster in that way, but it was certainly a challenge, and there were lessons learned.
Yeah, thank goodness water doesn't work off hydro.
Yeah.
Well, I guess it does in some houses.
It does, but they had backup generators to keep the water flowing and stuff like that. So depending on where you were, but for the most part, we got through it. And neighbors helped neighbors, and people came together. It didn't turn into the zombie apocalypse, fortunately.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in the end,
it's interesting though that sorry.
No, you go ahead.
You find it interesting that there are preparedness plans at every level of government, even in the CDC and the World Health Organization, for a zombie apocalypse. Even what was it? Google or one of the tech companies even rewrote their manuals to accommodate a zombie apocalypse. Or are you not familiar with that?
I've heard about that. I'm not personally aware of, I've not seen any zombie apocalypse emergency plans firsthand. But it
was kind of.
There are probably some out there.
The CDC. Yeah, I think it's the CDC. They changed theirs. It's more like a comic book now, but that was the first one that somebody showed me, and it was like full on real deal. It looked like the one we had through my work. I worked in a building, and it was hospital related, and so we had we would be the center where if there was that kind of thing, it would come. So I had seen the manuals before. It looked just like that manual.
Yeah.
Same setup and everything, and it was on their website. And now I think it's been changed, and it has it's more like a comic book style on their website now. Anyway, I just thought that was weird, and hopefully it never comes to that. But you mentioned zombies, and it sparked my thought, and I just don't understand, if there's not something to it, why so much money has been invested in doing up those plans. But anyway, that's a whole other topic, really.
I saw some people driving around in their cars with masks on still today. So it's a thing. What can I say?
I don't understand it.
What can I say? But I have to say this, I can't tell you where, because I don't want to embarrass the person, but I was encouraged a little bit today because a friend of mine works at I'll say a retail store. Okay. And I had to go out today and I had to run some errands and send out some packages. And I went to this place and, during the pandemic, and I have to, this is a confession. This person wore a mask and was all in, right? On the lockdowns and the masking and the social, all of it. And I've known the person for 20 years. And I used to go in and I wouldn't wear my mask. And we never got into an argument or anything, right? But it was clearly a bit of friction. But today I was there. This person was working and they didn't have a mask on. Everything was kind of normal. And I was so grateful that things didn't deteriorate between us to the point where we got into arguments about it or anything. Because today I just realized that we'd come back to a place of pretty much normality, of friendship, and that had been pushed to the side. And I don't know where that person's headspace is at on all of those issues now today after everything that has come to light. I don't discuss it. We don't need to. We're just back to the way it was. And I was just really grateful. And I hope we never get back to that place again where I used to go in and here's my confession. I used to get upset inside with this person because it was almost like I wanted to take it out on them, because they couldn't see things the way that I did. I never did express it that way. And I'm so grateful today that I sort of didn't. I just let the information flow and time progress. And we've gotten back to a place where we don't need to, right? We sort of respected each other's space and headspace and just went on with things day to day back then. And I'm grateful for that. And I'm extremely grateful that, at least for now, no more masks. The issue's not there in front of us. Those feelings are all gone. We don't need to have them anymore. And you see what I'm saying?
I do. You're making me think of some of the relationships I have.
Yeah.
So I can kind of relate, but.
Yeah, I hope that makes sense to people. Because so many people out there that, it's just everybody was so divided and have been for so long. And we just have to come back together so we can live together. And it was just that the polarization of everything, man, we just got to get over it, move on, get to a better place somehow. That's where I'm at.
Right. I've heard you say it a couple of times that it feels like we're getting back to a normality and for me, for whatever reason, I don't feel it yet. Things feel different. Everything feels different to me.
It is. I don't know if I don't know if our generation now, if we will ever get back to a place of normality because of what we just went through. And it was so traumatic. And I think especially, what I'm seeing on the freedom side is we're still in a bubble and we're being fed information into our bubble all the time. And the information we're getting is still keeping us jacked up. In like a fight or flight sort of position where we sort of should be, but don't need to be. We need to try to make things better. Like Derek Smith is running for mayor, and he's trying to make a difference, and things are not the way they were. I just don't think they ever will be, but we need to keep, what am I saying? We need to keep things in perspective. It's important to keep things in perspective and keep things real. so that we can go to the store and interact with the people who we were maybe inside angry with before because we were so divided. We can't go through life like that. We can't go through the rest of our days holding on to that anger and that division. We've got to let some of that go, so that we can just function and stay in a positive frame of mind, so that we can embrace each other again and respect differences of opinion. If we don't, we're going to go to our graves prematurely from heart attacks with hate in our hearts and our heads. And, I just don't want to do that.
Well, anger will certainly eat you up. Been there. I try not to, like I mentioned before, the fact that Trudeau irritates me to the way he does, just the sight of him, that bothers me that I allow that. And I can't control it. I've tried, but he does. He's a trigger for me. It's just the sight of him, his voice. But I hope that people don't forget. I mean, get over it and try and move on. But I don't want us to forget. We must remember.
Oh, absolutely.
Or we will allow that totalitarian step to keep going.
I agree.
And I don't, by any sense, are we any... we're not much further along. We are in some respects, but in some respects, I think we're further behind. They were not... I mean, whoever is doing this, whatever their motivation is, they're still moving full throttle ahead. And I think that part of their tactic is to throw more things at us than we can deal with. I mean, they're the government for the most part, throwing these things. And I mean, they can launch 6 initiatives with 6 teams to do it. And if you only have, we don't have the resources, we don't have the money, we don't have the experienced people, it's hard to fight back against these things. And I think that's one of the tactics they've been using. You got, they're going after the internet, and they're going after the guns. And, I mean, maybe this question about Chinese interference, maybe that'll slow them down a bit here in Canada, or at least the Trudeau government. But whatever's behind them might keep on going here in Canada, and it's certainly going to continue elsewhere in the world. And they are pushing hard for whatever their goals are. I mean, I know some of them, and I have an idea what's going on, but I don't think anybody fully knows or who's running the show. I mean, it's certainly not Trudeau. It's certainly not Schwab. There's a group we don't know about. I'm positive of it. I come from a Christian perspective. Ultimately, it's evil, and it's coming, from Satan's seed or whatever. But whatever this is, it is vicious, it's ruthless, and it has an agenda, and it's not stopping.
Appreciate the call. Thank you,
Thank you, Rick. Appreciate you gave me.
All right.
Have a good night.
Have a good night, too. Okay. Who's up next? I don't have a name on the screen.
Rick, it's Deborah calling back.
Hey.
I'm sorry to call back on you, but I just got a breaking news. I think it's breaking. The Liberals float the possibility of making a motion on foreign interference a confidence vote.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. I started hearing about that yesterday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be fantastic? Because I read the article just now and I got goosebumps. I thought, oh my God. Oh, I got all excited. It's a big, long, blah, blah, blah. But basically they're actually verbalizing the corrupt government and that the NDP and coalition and all that is a nightmare. And
where are you finding this? What's the source?
The source is National News Watch.
And do they have any quotes from anyone?
I wish I could just send you the link. It would be so much easier. But Mia Rabinson, the Canadian Press, reported by the Canadian Press, first reported today, with files from Dylan Robertson. They're going to hold a public inquiry. Just skimming through here, I'm just trying to find. I mean, we've been wanting this for a long time, right? I know that myself and thousands of people a couple of years ago voted non-confidence, and it fell on deaf ears because the government is WEF, right? We actually, the system crashed because so many of us called in. And yeah, it fell on deaf ears. But if this happens, if they can do this, this would be pretty big, would it not?
Well, I'm not seeing any other media outlets reporting that this is the case. So there's a budget coming up, and the way the system works is a budget is generally considered to be when they vote on a budget, that's an issue of confidence. So if a budget is defeated, then the government could be dissolved as a result of that. They could push to have a vote of no confidence in the House, but there's a procedure to be followed in order for that to happen. With me not seeing any other media outlets saying that this is actually going to happen, I'm a little skeptical that this is still just a rumor or something that someone or some people are hoping will happen. I don't, so I wouldn't say that this is a real thing
Mark
yet.
Holland said, I don't know if you know that, I don't know the name Mark Holland, but said he's not ruling out turning a conservative motion on foreign interference into a confidence vote that could topple the government and would test the strength of the supply and confidence deal.
So he's
between
saying
the Liberals and
could
NDP.
turn it into a confidence vote. So it's not it isn't an absolute thing, but yeah. So I've been hearing that kind of talk for the last 24 hours. So it could happen. I'm of mixed mind.
It just came across my screen and I went, ooh.
It doesn't mean it's definitely going to happen. And I have mixed feelings about it.
Right.
Mixed thoughts. I think that Justin Trudeau wants an election. I think he wants
he probably does because he's so crooked.
No, I think he wants an election because the economy is tanking. And I think he'd like to go to the polls. I think he's probably wishing he could have gone to the polls sooner, because I think we're in for a really rough ride economically over the next even 3 to 6 months. And by the time he goes to the polls now, the economy is probably going to be in much worse shape. So I think he was hoping to have an election before the economy tanks. So I'm not sure where he sits on it tonight, but in order to get an election, this might be the issue that he actually uses to have an election.
Okay. Yeah.
Because I think it would actually be a better chance if we waited 3 to 6 months when the banks start to crash even worse, and inflation is higher, and unemployment is fueling. We've got huge stagflation, and the currency is maybe, kaput. And I think it could come within 3 to 6 months. So much better chance of unseating the government then. But if he gets reelected now, and the polls indicate that he would form another minority government, which would mean at least another year or two of a Trudeau minority.
Oh, God help us.
Right. So
yeah,
that's what I'm thinking.
That would be a nightmare.
So we'll see what happens. But
I'm with the last caller. Trudeau evokes exactly the same thing inside me. So I think that's becoming quite a universal thing across our country.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate, but it is what it is. I mean, that he's created that himself, and I don't feel sorry for him for that in any way, shape, or form. But it was Roman Baber that it was part of his platform about the supply chain. I remember his name now. So that's where I got that information from, about the Soviet-style supply chain changes that Trudeau made to it. And they questioned Poilievre on it. And Poilievre said, I will not change anything that he changed. I support it. So that's what that
I'd still need more context to understand what that means. Because Justin Trudeau, the government can't just change supply chains. They can provide incentives and tax people and companies to do certain things or give grants, but to completely alter the supply chains, they did that by locking everything down.
I don't know if it was a big. Yeah, they did. Yeah, I don't know if it was a big change, but it was something that Trudeau initiated that was worthy of being part of Baber's platform. That's all I remember now. But anyways, I noticed in the chat some of the people saying, "Are we still talking politics here? It's over." Wow, it's like I guess they don't realize just how much trouble we're in. I'm the least political person I knew, and I'm terribly, terribly worried.
Are you talking about Roman Babbers as conservative leaders? So he would not support supply management. Is that what you're referring to? I'm just looking it up here.
I don't know if it was supply man. I can't remember because it was so long ago now. My life has been full. But that stuck with me, though. He called it Soviet style supply.
Yeah,
I thought it was supply
that's
chain.
that's not supply chain management. What that's referring to is something different. That's like supply management. That is like and if I'm reading this correctly and I'm just skimming it, but it's like the milk. Yeah, right here. I'm not sure that Pierre has the same position. I would also not seek to protect supply management. I would seek to phase it out. If Mr. Polyev proposes that we should eliminate gatekeepers, then we should certainly not place quotas on how much dairy we produce. That's not supply chain management. That's supply management. That's like the dairy farmers. They put caps on how much they're allowed to produce in order to drive the price of milk.
Okay.
Up. So they artificially inflate the price of milk by forcing farmers who produce to only produce so much. And if they produce over a certain amount, they have to dump it. They literally dump it down the drain. So people can't have it.
There was a lot of that going on. Yeah, there was a lot of that happening over the last few months, actually.
Yes. So it goes on all the time. It's been going on for years and years and years. And that's one of the main issues. Maxime Bernier did not win the conservative leadership when he was running against Scheer. And Scheer made a deal or aligned himself with the dairy farmers who supported him. And in the end, that gave him the extra 1% that he needed to defeat Maxime Bernier for the leadership of the Conservative Party. It was the dairy issue. And that's what Baber was referring to. That's not supply chains. That's supply management. And there are a number of industries, particularly in agriculture, where supply management is employed. It is very much a socialist, communistic full government control of an industry approach.
Right.
They limit competition. They limit entry into the industry. And if you want to be a dairy farmer, you have to have permits, and you can only produce so much. They control the industry, and they tell farmers that's good for them.
I would love to see that go.
It keeps the price high. So when you go to the supermarket, you pay more for milk than you would if they just let the marketplace operate freely. It's not a free market. It's completely government controlled.
Yes. And see, that should change. Thank you for clearing that up. Thank you. Because that was really bothering me. And it was so long ago, I couldn't remember it all, but I just remember it really bothered me. And then with hearing about them dumping all this milk lately and stuff, it's tragic. It's like, that shouldn't be happening. And Poilievre said he wouldn't change that. And that bothered me. So, And speaking of Scheer, actually, recently in the House, he actually flat out said that Trudeau's corrupt, quote unquote. I thought that was funny.
Well, they have parliamentary privilege in there. They can say those sorts of things and not get sued. Just don't say
right. Isn't that lovely?
Yeah. Wouldn't you like to be able to have that kind of privilege?
Wouldn't that be great to be free again, Rick?
Well, Even in a free
Oh, God help
society,
us
there are
all. But
limits. You need to be careful what you say about other people. You know, there is value in libel and slander laws
oh,
as
yeah,
well, right? So defamation of character is still a bad
absolutely.
thing.
And
Can't just go around
yeah,
lying about people.
tis true. Tis true. Yeah, no, I agree. On that note, I'd just leave you with all the Maverick folk with this thought, and people out there. Just remember that most people don't really want the truth. They just want constant reassurance that what they believe is the truth.
Mm-hmm.
To me, that sums up what we're up against right now amongst each other.
Yes. You're right. That's exactly what I was thinking when I saw the people driving around today with the masks on in their own cars by themselves.
Yes, I know. It just, it's, where it's kind of dumbfounding, isn't it? But what it comes down to is that, they want to feel safe in the reassurance that what they believe is actually true.
Yeah.
And most unfortunate, and how you get around that.
I mean, imagine what's going through their head and how fearful they must be. And today to be now out in public and everywhere they go, everybody else is not wearing the mask, and how furious they must be inside.
I know.
Right? If they're still at
I
that
know.
stage, wow.
Yes.
How are you ever going to reach that person? I
Yeah.
don't know.
I wish I had the answer for that. I've got a neighbor who lives in the same apartment building, and she's still, when I run into her in the building, she's still wearing the white N95 mask. It just, yeah. What can you do?
Yeah. Power of media, man.
And the funny thing is, she was in my apartment. I was giving her a bunch of food. And when she was in my apartment, she had the mask. She was standing within a foot away from me. And I was handing her all this food to take. And she was standing there with the mask hanging off her ear. Yeah.
That's terrible.
What do you do, right? Yeah. It's like the Linus and Charlie Brown with the security blanket.
Yeah.
It's.
And on the one hand, I'm like, well, if it makes them feel better and they want to wear the mask, like, go ahead. But I'm also I feel sorry for them to be going through life that fearful.
Exactly, 100%. And what is it doing to their health? It's not helping them, even though they truly believe it is.
Yeah,
so,
not at all.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking what this government has done to our people.
Truly,
it's a good example of what
truly is.
Yeah. Anyways, I won't keep you, and thank you for clearing that up, because it was driving me nuts. And then I thought, well, I remember his name, and if I tell Rick, it'll trigger him, and yeah, sure enough, it did, and that clears that up. But
Hang on a second. Before you go,
situation.
let me just check to see what Polyev on supply management. I just want to find out what his actual position is on it. Yeah, he says he won't change supply management.
Yes.
Yeah.
I remember that vividly. He actually said that. I watched the video on it, and it stuck with me.
Yeah.
And I thought, yeah, man, that's just. So there's these things niggling me, right? And let
me ask you this though, because there's two schools of thought on that. Do you understand why they do it?
I can't say that I do in the moment right now.
I can explain it. I can explain their perspective to you. For the people who are in favor of supply chain, of supply management for something like dairy. Canada is a small country. We only have about 30 million people. They want to protect the industry to make sure that, and this is their frame of mind on this, okay? They want to make sure that we have a dairy industry. So they protect it from the US, which is, over 10 times the size of Canada with over 300 million people. So what they do is they put tariffs that make it impractical for the US
Oh,
to
yeah.
import milk. And then they say to the Canadian farmers, what we're going to do is we're going to help you by capping production. You guys can be incredibly productive, but we're only going to allow so many people to work in the dairy industry. And those of you who are producing can only produce so much. And that will make sure that we set the price based on the amount of supply that's there. We restrict supply to drive the price up in the marketplace. And that will make sure that you make enough money to become a sustainable industry. So we protect you. That makes sure that you're always going to be making a profit no matter what the market does. And so we as consumers then go to the supermarket and we get our supply of milk, but we pay a higher price for it. And that higher price is the price we pay for stability in the industry and to make sure that Canada has a dairy industry. So that, because the other thing that they're thinking is that if they don't provide that kind of protection, if they don't cap production, if they just let people produce at whatever level they want to and let competition dictate who wins and who loses, you might end up with just maybe a few big producers, or that the US would then flood the market with product that they can produce cheaper because they can produce on such a massive scale, to produce at economies of scale, to supply a market that's over 10 times the size of Canada, that you'd have huge dairy companies in the US just pushing their product into Canada at such a low price that it would just wipe out Canadian dairy farmers and you wouldn't have a dairy industry here at all. So that's their thinking on it, right? I don't fully agree with it, but
I don't either.
I do believe there can be some checks and balances in place. I think that they need to get to more of a hybrid system, and I think you can still have a dairy industry, and consumers should be enjoying lower prices for their food and for their milk products, their dairy products. I think we can be there. I think that we can be more efficient, and I think that if they, because if they opened up the market, Canadian producers could also supply to the US. And then a whole new dynamic would unfold. And then we could be an exporter of milk products to the US, and they could be importing to Canada, depending on how that's most efficient, right? Depending on which state exports to which provinces and so forth. And the market would work itself out. And you could still have regulations in place to ensure safety and quality and so on. But there's probably a better way to do it, but this is the system we've had for decades.
For sure.
Agriculture is very, very tricky that way. The problem with agriculture for farmers especially is because they're dealing with commodities and international commodity prices. And other countries, for the most part, almost all other countries get some sort of government intervention in their industry. There are subsidies, grants, all kinds of different programs, crop insurance programs to make sure that their farmers are supported. So if Canada doesn't have similar kinds of programs or other checks or other things to make sure that they're supported, then they're at a disadvantage. So it's almost incumbent upon government to provide these kinds of supports with government intervention so that Canadians can compete at an economy of scale and with some advantages that way, so that they're on an equal footing with producers in other countries. It becomes very complicated.
Unfortunately, and it doesn't seem to be so much in the favor of the citizens and the farmers. I mean, that's how my brain is breaking it down anyway.
Well, if you talk to a lot of the farmers who understand this stuff, a lot of them would argue that they want these marketing boards and these supply management mechanisms in place because they do feel it protects them. I'm not so sure that it protects consumers, but the farmers feel that it provides protection for them. And if you're one of the lucky ones who has the permit and the quota, then you're making good money as a dairy farmer. You can make good money. Like theoretically, right? Depending on what your other supply costs, what your input costs are.
But
so a lot of them are
the
very much in
problem with
favor
that
of it.
is that the control. Yeah, the control of that though, because it's stopping other farmers from being able to do what they need to do.
But then
and
the
all
argument
of
is
that
if you
kind of
allowed
stuff.
more
We've seen then
competition, it would force
billions of
prices
value.
down, and then all those other farmers would make all the farmers would make less, and they would all suffer at that point. So it's a complicated issue.
It's kind of it's very complicated because I saw plenty of video over the last little while of farmers being upset for having to pour out all this good milk. And that was upsetting for me too.
Yeah. I mean, that's because not all farmers support it. Depends on the person, right? Some of those farmers feel that they could compete even with the US if given the chance, but they're not allowed to. Other farmers don't want the competition. They're quite content. And that's what happened was like the key issue during the conservative leadership contest, where Maxime Bernier was up against Mr. Scheer. And in the end, it was the dairy farmers who wanted supply management to remain in place because Max was against it and Scheer was in favor of it. So Andrew Scheer actually stood up at the podium and took a carton of milk and took a drink of milk. There's a speech of him doing that right at the end there, and that's what pushed him over the top. And Max lost that leadership race by 1%.
Oh my goodness, 1% milk.
There you go. Yes. So there's the story of the milk supply chain thing.
That's really fascinating, actually, because it just seems to be like we are drowning in control as it is. And in Kenya right now, this is bizarre. Their drinking water is only available with ID cards now. They're actively implementing a program until 2030 on digital control. So these people in Kenya are walking up to a wall with a spout sticking out of it, and they have to run an ID card over it to get their quota of water.
Insane.
That's happening right now as we speak. I'm like, this stuff makes me crazy. Like
yeah, well, I like less government. I'm
me too.
Conservative that way. Maybe even libertarian.
Especially now.
I
don't know. I'd love no government at this point. I've never. 100%. Oh my goodness. Yeah, I've been governmented up the yin yang. I think most of us have been under Trudeau's regime. So anyways, I won't keep you, but thank you again for your time.
Thank you. Great call.
I wish everybody. Thank you, and I wish everyone a great night.
Okay, take care. Okay, let's go for one more. Who do we have on the line?
You have Doug.
Hello. How are you tonight?
Not too bad. The caller who just got off, the confidence vote.
Yep.
Well, there's one little problem. That coalition is still there, and the vote on the motion that put forward is by the Conservatives to unredact all information and call certain people to testify on the committee or in front of the committee for the Chinese interference. So there's the problem, and NDP are not going to vote for the motion. They're going to vote against it, and we all know the Liberals ain't going to accept it because they got too much to hide. So what is the NDP hiding as well? Because there's also rumors and talks of things out in BC involving Chinese interference with the elections with NDP. So go back to the whole thing. The vote's tomorrow after question period. It'd be probably around 3 o'clock your time, 4 o'clock my time. I'm on the East Coast. But I watched the debate today.
Yep.
And also I watched the question period. So, but as you know, our leaders of the Liberals are not there in the House. So the House speakers and other Liberals were taking the answers and providing the questions of it's all to do with partisan. But it's not partisan. It's, well, the rapporteur was appointed by the Liberals. The NDP agreed with the appointment, even though this guy, Johnson, is the head of the Beijing committee of something for the Chinese, plus a good friend of Trudeau.
So I do have the information here on what's likely to happen. So the Liberals have floated the possibility of making a motion on foreign interference a confidence vote. So the Conservatives tabled the motion in the House of Commons today, demanding that the Prime Minister's Chief of Staff, Katie Telford, appear at the House Ethics Committee before the middle of next month. And Liberal House Leader Mark Holland says he's not ruling out turning a Conservative motion on foreign interference into a confidence vote, and that could topple the government because that's what happens in a confidence vote. If there's a vote of non-confidence, if the government is if the members of Parliament vote in favor of the vote of non-confidence, showing they have no confidence in the Prime Minister and the sitting government, then it can topple the government. So this will test the strength of the resilience, I guess, of that coalition between the NDP and the Liberals. So the Conservatives tabled the motion in the House of Commons today. They demanded that Katie Telford appear before that House Ethics Committee, and we've been hearing repeated calls for that. They want her, along with more than a dozen other witnesses, to answer questions about allegations that the Chinese government interfered in Canada's last two federal elections, right? So this follows, weeks of filibustering by the Liberals to prevent Telford from being summoned. They don't want her to. So that Alberta Member of Parliament, Michael Cooper, he's been sort of the star of the show in those hearings, looking into Chinese meddling. And he said Telford is a critical witness to get to the heart of the scandal. He says she should be able to answer questions about what Trudeau knows about China's attempts at trying to influence the elections and meddling. So the Conservatives and the Bloc Québécois both seem prepared to vote in favor of this motion of non-confidence. The New Democrats, though, they're not really saying at this point where they stand on the specific motion, but they intend to push their own motion demanding a full public inquiry be called on the issue of foreign interference. And so we've heard Jagmeet Singh talk about that. So they are in favor of an inquiry, but will they support a motion of non-confidence in the House tomorrow? I kind of doubt it, but we'll see. That's kind of where things sit at the moment. So Cooper says that while the motion is a test for the government, it's also a test for the NDP. And it could be a real test now to see if that coalition between the NDP and the Liberals will hold together. And at this point, I think it would be difficult for, well, if the NDP does not vote in favor of a non-confidence motion, I think that some people might push back against that. It might cost them some public support. It depends on how concerned the general public is about Chinese meddling in elections. I'm not sure why the Liberals would do this. They either want an election because of what I stated earlier, because they want to go to the polls before the economy collapses, or maybe for some other reason I'm not aware of. That's a theory that I have. Or they feel very confident that they will have the support of Jagmeet Singh and the NDP to see if they defeat the motion of non-confidence, it bolsters Trudeau's position and backstops him It really gives him an opportunity to entrench his position, prevent his chief of staff Telford from testifying. It slows the whole process down and gives him more power to prevent further inquiry. I think if the vote of non-confidence is defeated and he stays in power, doesn't have to call an election, I think it also means that it diminishes the possibility of an actual inquiry taking place. So it's a very dangerous thing, I think, where they're going tomorrow. If it even gets there, if they even really do table this as a motion of non-confidence. So that's my assessment of it. And that's where we're at tonight. That's the latest information I've been able to get online. So it's a real thing. We'll see what happens tomorrow. Tomorrow's going to be a big day. Any other thoughts on that?
It's going to be a real big day tomorrow. But I say, with what's going to be taking place at question period, it's going to be a repeat of what happened today at question period. And the corrupt conversation thing that they're calling, well, it came from the conservative side, calling the Liberals corrupt. I don't know who said it, who it was, but the point of order came out afterwards that the person who was whining, complaining about the word corrupt, the House Speaker for the Liberals, back in, I think it was 2001, called a conservative corrupt. So, like, they kind of, one hand washed the other hand, and that language cannot be used in the House, in Parliament, calling somebody corrupt. Or calling somebody a liar, might as well say. And let's say the vote tomorrow, I hope it gets passed. To have those people speak on the interference of the Chinese who have the fill in the blanks that the Liberals are trying to cover up.
Yeah.
But in the debates today over the motion, the NDP were saying, well, we have no really evidence of any interference. So the vote's going to go NDP and Liberal, and motion defeated.
Could be.
That's the bottom line. Like, I didn't vote NDP, but I did vote for somebody. I do vote. I vote Conservative. You want to know who it is. But the thing is, we have a Liberal rep MLA where I live. And how can you say it? That person, like, it's just riding the coattail and being told what to do and what to say. The same as the rest of the Liberals under Trudeau's power. And it's like I say, the other day, the person in the committee said, following the footsteps of a dictatorship, more or less, of China to the COVID practices in Canada, of the mandates and lockdowns. What's a Chinese thing? I can't think of his name. It's up top of my head. And that's what it comes to. Like, we're in a dictatorship with the Liberal Party until they get voted out. And the only way you're going to get them out is to vote for the other party. And what party that is, that's up to the people. Or we're going to have what we got right now. So you want to split the vote? It will happen again. But the Liberals are in a minority, even on the vote, compared to the opposition. And I say, and the opposition and the Bloc, like, they don't agree on everything, but they do know common sense. and the rights for the people. The other side, the NDP and the Liberals, well, all they want to do is, well, let's see, what can we not have you do today? Or what will we allow you to do today? And that's going to change. Like we need back our vote and our freedom of speech, and to do what we want to do within the laws of Canada.
Yeah.
But they're only make new laws to restrict what we can do under the laws we have now.
Well,
and that's a scary part. So if they get a majority, Canada is screwed.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what it is. And you're in a spot too where, well, if I don't agree with you, I'm going to tell you. If you don't agree with me, well, you're just going to click. I'll go off on whatever and your own thoughts. But we got to respect each other as well.
Yes.
And like I said, we have to be able to have the common sense. It's not common law, common sense. The common sense to respect each other, but avoid the dictatorship.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't like to use that word dictatorship because
that's what it is.
Well, no, it's not really a dictatorship. That unfortunately, we have a government that is doing things that I don't like, and I can tell you don't like it. But some people did vote for it. They voted for this. I don't think it's quite a dictatorship. We just have a government that's in power and they're doing things we don't like. We need to get them out. And it's also not quite a dictatorship because Trudeau has to cater to the NDP. That's part of the problem too, because the NDP is even further left than the Liberals. And so we're getting even further left policies in order for the Liberals to keep that coalition going. But the fortunate thing is you and I still do have a voice here. You're able to still call in, and I can say something like Justin Trudeau is the worst prime minister in Canadian history, and I don't quite get thrown in jail, although some people seem to get their bank accounts frozen these days. So we've got a big problem on that front, but at least we still have elections, and there's a glimmer of hope that we can make a difference and get somebody else in there. And that opportunity looks like it could be coming up. Do you think that we might get a conservative government or something else out of this?
Well, if we get something else, that's bad. So we'll leave it at that.
I'm sorry, if we get something else, that's bad, did you say?
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
If you don't have a conservative government, then what you get is going to be bad.
Yeah, I mean, so you're not. I mean, obviously, you're not holding out hope for the People's Party of Canada, right? The PPC.
Huh?
Yeah. Okay.
I'm blue. I'm blue.
Yeah, I got you.
Now we disagree. I'm blue.
I got you.
You're PPC. I know you are.
Well, I've been
written all over your face.
No, but you know what? I'm not that I'm not as critical of Poilievre as some of the others. I have some pretty serious concerns about some of his policies, but I absolutely see how we need to change this Liberal government. I'm with you. So I'm reserving my vote. I'm reserving.
Yeah.
I'm not
there's
sure
like
what I'm going to do.
What do they call it in the States? The wave? It's supposed to go across the States.
The red wave. Yeah.
Yeah. It did happen once, but it didn't happen twice.
Yeah.
And, in Canada, well, we don't have a wave.
Yeah.
We have a bunch of people all fighting with each other.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about your freedom movement, your unity movement, your Black Lives movement, and whatever we want to call those rainbow people movements.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. They all can't agree. And then you got one person saying, okay, here's a bunch of money to you. We'll give these rights to these people. But the ones getting no rights and no freedom is the people who don't agree with them.
Yeah. Well, listen, sir, I got to move on. I got to move on because I got another caller in the queue and time is ticking. So been on.
Well, I hope John calls in tonight.
Yeah, you like John, do you?
I'd like to hear John's advice on the stock market.
Yeah. Well, he
And the
seems to
horses,
actually have
you can't
success
win.
there.
You can't win with the horses.
Yeah. Well, thank you, sir. Appreciate the call. Let's move on to Sarah.
You too.
All right. Take care.
All right. Bye.
And hello, Sarah. You want to talk about the banking system?
Hey, yeah. If you, or just a couple things about, I live in the United States and it's a little bit different here than it is in Canada.
Yeah. Speak right into the mic so we got good volume here. Make sure you speak.
Oh,
Right
is it a little hard to hear me?
A little bit. Yeah.
Okay. Is this any better?
Yeah, a little bit.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Is that okay?
Yep.
I'm sorry.
It's all right.
Okay. So I think the two callers ago, she had mentioned about, or you guys were talking about how about farmers being protected, under legislation, like for quotas and stuff. And my guess is that was probably has to do with preventing something like what happened in the United States during the 60s and 70s, where there was a lot, it's still going on today, where there's a lot of outsourcing for labor and products to the point where, it's just cheaper for companies to do that than it is to employ people, in the country. That's my guess, but that's just the kind of a thing that's been happening. And it hurt, like it makes knickknacks and stuff a lot cheaper, but it's not good for jobs. If that makes sense from what
not so much as it relates to agriculture and supply management policies, but
right, it's a little different.
Yeah,
that makes sense. Yeah.
It simply restricts supply to drive the price up to ensure that the farmers or the producers make a sustainable wage. That's the theory.
Right. Yeah. Which I think is good, because I think that farmers are important and they should be able to make money and, have a good living and be happy and enough money to be happy.
Yeah, the alternative would be open up the market.
Provide for themselves.
But, on the other side, you could argue that if they had access to the U.S. market, then they could expand their operation and potentially make even more by supplying product into a market 10 times the size of Canada. All they have to do is ramp up production and become efficient, and they already are, and provide a good product. And could they compete? If they had access to the market, maybe they could. So two schools of thought. You can pick your side, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I mean, it's, with even economists don't always know, what the hell's going on.
No, they don't. In fact, I've come to the conclusion that, I think economics is to a degree a science because it really does follow the laws of nature. But economists, most of them are not economists at all. They're just political pundits. And they tend to pick a political side and then they make their arguments to support whatever political beliefs they have. And those political beliefs obviously involve economic policies.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's also the VB, bank collapse.
Yep.
And you've seen It's a Wonderful Life, right?
I have. One of my favorite movies of all time. Frank Capra with Jimmy
Great movie.
Stewart.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. It's a good movie.
That's right.
Right.
And there's a run on the bank. That was the first.
Yeah.
That was what introduced me to the whole reality of a possible run on a bank. Was that movie when I was a kid? I remember saying to my brother, who's a lot older than me, "What's going on? What's that?" And then he had to explain it to me. I was just like knee high, right?
Yeah.
Good thing I learned
learned
it about it back then.
Yeah, so it's funny because when I was younger, we would have that. My grandma would put it on every year when we go and visit her, and I finally watched, well, I don't know, 10 years ago, and I was like, holy shit, this is actually a good movie. And it's really interesting because it is about things that are kind of going on now. So for example, and it's kind of a tie back to, the thing that I wanted to talk about, which is, so during that time, in 1933, there was, the Glass-Steagall, Glass-Steagall Act of 1933, which was to prevent banks from basically taking, so commercial banks it would protect the depositors from using the deposits as speculative trading in the stock market. So basically, the money's not safe. You're putting your money in there, and you have, it seems like, well, we should be able to trust the banks without thought. It should just be, because that's what they should be doing. And instead, that's not what they were doing. So that's why Glass-Steagall was put in place in the United States in 1933, right? In the middle of the Great Depression. Then in 2010, there was Dodd-Frank, which was put in place after the 2008 financial crisis, because there were, it was predatory lending. They were giving out, or not giving out, but letting people, sign the dotted line for a mortgage that they couldn't afford with variable rates. And to me, that's kind of that's predatory to the banks. So in my view, the government should be the one stepping in to make sure that banks aren't being greedy. And that's where I think the government should step in, and be like, hey, don't, that's not cool, basically. And it's also the separation between commercial banks and name escapes me right now, but yeah, I guess
I would argue that it's the government that has created the problem with the banks to begin with policies designed as incentives, or even, using the carrot and the stick to get corporations, including banks, to adopt woke policies, including woke economic policies, instead of putting true economics at the forefront and fiduciary responsibility to shareholders, investors, depositors. They put woke politics front and center, especially at SVB, where they took on a lot of debt involving woke environmental green companies that were focused on developing new technology for the green economy, which was highly risky. So that was part of the problem right there. And then you couple that with massive money printing and high inflationary policies and modern monetary theory, which basically says that there doesn't need to be a limit to the money printing. Just print. And if you get inflation, just print more. That'll solve the problem. And you're about to see that even enacted right now in Canada, with the finance minister saying that they're going to target specific certain areas of the economy to support people in these times of high inflation. And you see the Inflation Reduction Act in the United States, which is Biden's administration basically saying they're going to fight inflation by spending more money and printing more money, which is what causes inflation to begin with. And now they're going to bail out the banks, which is another big part of the problem, because they're sending a negative, the wrong message to the banks, which is you can act in a very irresponsible way, and no matter what happens, we're still going to protect the depositors, and in the end sort of bail you out, even though they're saying it's not a bailout. It is a bailout, and they're saying taxpayers aren't going to pay for it, but taxpayers are going to pay for it. They're just kind of naming it something different, and it's all just a big shell game, and eventually it will all come crashing down, and I think we're beginning to witness that right now. And so it is actually the government that is at the root of the very problem, which was the same thing back in 2008, where they forced banks to give loans to people who otherwise really couldn't afford them. And then as soon as interest rates bumped up a little bit, they began to default, and the whole thing fell apart, and the government came back in and bailed them all out again with more free money. And that just kicked the can down the road. And now the devil has come to visit. That's my take.
Fair enough, but did they force them to give out those loans, or were they doing
absolutely
it
did. Yes,
because...
they forced the banks, because what they were saying back in 2008 was that a lot of the loan practices were discriminatory. So they were saying that if they had, say, someone who was black come in, that if they didn't give them the loan, that would be evidence of discrimination. So they had to give the loans even if they didn't meet the same threshold, or the same, they didn't have the same credit rating as someone who was white. So they were, in a way, almost giving the banks the green light to take advantage, even more advantage of people from minority communities or depressed communities or neighborhoods. And the people, of course, a lot of the people who are in those sorts of financial situations where they're disadvantaged or at a disadvantage, they don't understand money in the way that people who have a lot of money have it. So when they walk into the bank and they sign on the dotted line for a loan that they can't afford, the bank's not doing them a favor. The government's not doing them a favor. They're just putting them in a bad financial situation where they're going to end up defaulting on it. But they wanted those loans, saying, if you don't give me the loan, you're discriminating against me. Well, no, we're not giving you the loan because you can't afford it. And if I do give you the loan, then you're going to be in a really bad position financially. And then when you go bankrupt, it's going to hurt your credit rating even more, and you're going to suffer. But the government was like, nope, you got to give them the loan. And then they were like, woohoo, let's write all this debt. And they did. And they made a crap load of money really fast because they wrote up all these loans for people who couldn't afford them. And then on paper, it looked like the economy was booming because suddenly they sold a lot more houses, but the people were buying houses they couldn't afford to pay for. And so it all was a house of cards that came collapsing back in 2008 because the government just inflated it all. It was all fake and artificial, and people were living beyond their means, which is generally what causes these kinds of crashes. There isn't enough productivity to support the level of consumption. That's basic economics. I mean, I've studied I studied economics. This is just the basics. I've got a background in economics. I understand it. It's not that complicated. You can only keep racking it up on the credit card so long, and eventually the piper comes home and he wants to get paid, right? That's what was going on in 2008. They just solved it by printing more money. Then what that is it just injects more money into the economy. It creates this false sense of growth, but it really spreads the price out across the economy, forces everyone to basically pay. It's a form of taxation because it reduces the value of the money that you have, and they can redistribute the wealth. So they just inject more money into the system where they see that it's needed at that moment. But then you and I end up paying for it because the value of the money we've been saving in the bank for our retirement drops by 10, 20, 30, maybe even 40%, whatever it is at the time, right? So that's what we're going through right now with this inflation. You go through 5, 10%, 7% inflation annually, year over year. Within 3 or 4 years, you've lost 20% of your spending value. And if you've got it sitting in the bank, that's a tax on you. They've taken money, they printed it, they gave it out to their friends. But there's so much more money now, everything you've saved for is worth 20% less. So, I mean, all this, let's give everybody a $15 an hour minimum wage. What a load of crap. They gave everybody $15 an hour minimum wage, but then they inflated the crap out of the economy. So the $15 doesn't mean squat anyway. Now you're just paying, like I went for lunch the other day at a restaurant, that freaking fast food restaurant. It cost me like almost $19. Like I was like, just a few years ago, it was like $5. I'm still living in the 80s. And it's like in my head, I'm in the, like, well, I'll give you $5. No, it's going to be 1987, please. I'm like, come on. Okay, just take the fries back. I'm like,
yeah, no, and a mortgage, and a second mortgage on your house, right? Just
right, and then
because-
people can't afford anything, and then if you're on a fixed income, you're you're in retirement. The government hasn't done you any favors at all. They're
Oh, yeah,
like,
that's-
we're going to give you an extra $300 a year on your HST carbon tax credit thingy, and then you get $300. Yeah, but your overall wealth, like all the money you've saved for all your life, is now worth 30% less or 40% less over just
Yeah.
like 3 or 4 years, right? So you work your tail off, like my parents who are in their 90s now, right? And they struggle when they go to the grocery store because of what the government has done. And that is the government. And that's why the banks are to the point where they're about to collapse. Because people have lost confidence, that creates a run on the bank. They're extracting their money. They've got more debt out that they've written, which is another form of currency creation that people are not aware of. When a bank writes debt, when they take on loans like that, that's like fake money. They don't really have the money to back it up at the bank. They don't have enough in reserve. But they've got all these people out there with loans, with money that practically doesn't even really exist. It's all on paper. And so when people come to get their money out of the bank, they don't really have it. So if too many people come at once, it's just like George Bailey, run on the bank. There isn't enough. And then they have to sit there and say, Mrs. Jones, how much do you really need today? Would $2.50 be okay? Would that get you by till Tuesday? Just don't go to Harvey's because it's 1957 for a hamburger and fries now. Just have to get the kids' meal with no drink. And there's the reality today. What's that?
I said, it really is insanity. Like
it is.
How much stuff costs and how much, like, you know,
and
putting money in the bank, like you're.
And I can go on and on and on about this stuff. And this is why there's no manufacturing here too. It's because the dollar is artificially high, especially when you have like 0% interest rates. Like, does that even make any sense? Do you know what 0% interest rates means? It means money is free. You like the interest rate is really what dictates what the value of money is. So if they're saying interest rates are 0, it's like money has no value. It's like worth nothing. Here's some free money. And that's kind of what the banks have been playing with. They get it at 0 and then they loan it out to you at like 2, 10, 7, 8, 15, whatever. What are you paying on your credit card? 17, 18, 20%, 21%. Like the banks are getting it for nothing.
Oh, more than that.
Like they got input costs, labor and so, and then they were, these modern monetary theorists, in their insanity, they've even started to play with negative interest rates. How insane is that? What kind of inflation do you think that causes?
Well, that doesn't sound like, let's be honest, this is capitalism. Like, you're not, like, it's not going to work for them.
No, because why
would they?
The reason they do that is because it fuels consumption. It forces people to spend the money. It makes no sense at that point for you to hold on to it because money is worth less than 0. So the minute you get it, you have to spend it. It doesn't make sense for you to hold on to cash. You have to put that into something else, something tangible that holds its value. Negative interest rates, that's like instant inflation. Who's going to hold their money at negative interest rates? Now you practically have to pay the bank to deposit your money in there. And that's really where it's gotten with the fees they charge you. And then you're not making anything on like a savings account, let alone like a savings bond.
Oh, yeah,
they pay like nothing.
Penny.
So it makes no sense for people to hold these savings bonds or put your money in a bank account. It's insane. So they've created a high consumption, no savings, high inflation environment. And then you couple that with low productivity because they locked the economy down. Now you've got high consumption, no productivity. Now you've got massive inflation. we've got is stagflation. And that's why they have no room to maneuver now. Because they don't know what to do. And I've already given them the solution, but they don't watch this show, so they don't pay any attention to me and they don't do the right thing, which is that you have to grow your way out of it. You need productivity. You need to increase production. But in their heads, and they've already stated this, they think if they put people back to work, it will fuel more inflation because they'll have more money. But they forget the fact that if they produce, you're creating more supply. And if you produce efficiently, then it drives prices down because you're increasing the supply of products and services. So people can still make money, do it incredibly efficiently using technology like factories and mass production to drive consumer prices down through productivity and exporting goods. That's what we need to do, but they don't want to do that because they're all in on can't have any production because it's bad for the environment. So we have to have less. No production. Just tell everyone to stay home and print money. It doesn't work and we're doomed.
Well, the way that inflation is calculated does include part of the equation includes employment, which is not like, especially after the pandemic, is not really, and with the gig economy, I'm sorry, isn't really like a realistic way to calculate that number in a way that's accurate to what's really going on. So, you know, on top of that, like with banks, I guess one of my things is that I don't really trust like banks to like be like, banks are not, you know, altruistic entities. You know, they need to make money. It's capitalism. That's like, that is literally the purpose of every, you know, institution.
Yep, they're money changers. That's
yeah,
what they are.
and they make money off of your money. And that's what Glass-Steagall was trying to stop from happening, was making money off of your money so that you could have it, you know, if you needed to go and get it. But then they have management. They have bad management that is making decisions with your money and trading it. That's too risky. And if that's not managed properly by the government with like Glass-Steagall and Dodd-Frank, you know, I don't trust the banks to regulate themselves and be like, oh, you know, we can't really do that. No, they just want to make money. And if we just let like the banks just go for it, you know, hey, go for it, you know, they're not going to like be like, oh, well, we'd feel really bad if we lost your money. They're like, no, we just want to make a bunch of fucking money for the shareholders and also for
you know,
everyone else.
Well, you know, they have a name for that. It's not a bank. You know what they call that? It's called a casino.
I got kicked out of a casino actually the first time, which was
well, I'm not surprised. You're probably calling for government regulation. You're probably
I was like, hey guys,
this
listen.
casino needs more government regulation. Not enough people are winning.
Yeah. And they're like, all right, lady, get the hell out of here.
Yeah, I'd like a casino like that actually. But that, you know what?
Yeah.
It's the lotteries that prove you really can't trust the government because they're the ones who run the lotteries. And they're the ones also running the casinos, if you really want to know the truth. So
yeah,
can't trust the government either.
We just got sports betting legalized. I mean, I have no position on sports betting either way. Like, if you want to do that, you can. But that was just legalized in my state, which I just think is interesting, and I'm following that a little bit. But
my personal position on gambling is don't do it, Rick. You're gonna lose.
Yeah.
Guaranteed. So I don't do that. It's a bad idea. There's a casino here in town and I've never stepped foot inside the place. I'm told they have a pretty good buffet, but I haven't even seen that. So it's just the way it is. We better wrap it up for tonight though. It's been a great call.
Yeah, sure. Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, it was great talking to you.
It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, and thanks for taking my call. And it was really good talking to you.
Yeah, I'll talk less next time and let you talk more.
Oh, you're fine. You're totally fine. Seriously. But don't go to the casino, okay?
No, bad idea. Bad idea for me. Yeah. You take care. Talk to you soon.
All right. Thanks. You too. All right. Bye-bye.
Okay, and I'm going to keep my promise, folks, and I'm going to play this video for you that was sent to me. And it's the best darn video I've seen, and I don't know how long. It's uplifting. It addresses all the issues of negativity. It addresses people's kind of being sucked down the rabbit holes, being sucked into your phone and the metaverse. And it's all about getting back to reality. And it's fantastic. Best video, I don't know, maybe of the month. I'll tell you what, I'm going to take a quick break. You're not going to want to miss it, so don't go away. Real quick one, and I'll get it queued up for you. You're going to love it.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, Maverick News. Defending free speech, free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Okay, this is Rodney Douglas Norman. This was sent to me by Kevin Westfall, who's become a good friend. And this made me smile. So I absolutely have to share this with you tonight because this is just the best darn video I've seen. And I don't know how long. Made me laugh.
Hey, you know what I'm doing? Hey, you know what I'm doing? I just got up and started walking. I just started looking around at stuff. You can just get up and go around and wander around and look at stuff. If you don't got anything else to do, instead of sitting around just staring at your phone, you can bring your phone with you and stare at it while you're walking around looking at stuff. Then you find out the stuff you're looking at is a little more interesting than stuff on your phone, unless, of course, you decide to make a video about not looking at your phone. Then you got to keep looking at your. You know what? I'm just gonna turn my phone off and go look at some stuff. Okay, bye.
But it's true. It's true. That's freedom. It's right there. All you got to do is turn this thing off. Just go walk around and look at stuff. Yeah. Love you guys. Love Canada. And I love the United States. Tomorrow's going to be a big day. Catch y'all tomorrow on the flip side.
This has been a Maverick Multimedia production.